And all I can hear on background and repeats is "Buh, buh, 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 buh." But we don't have to hear that anymore. It's been an hour and a half, but we are actually ready to go into the first draft for game one as far as I'm aware. I think we're actually halfway through already. Well, this is actually the first time I've actually seen the draft, so I have to quickly scan over it. Lots of engage on blue side already. You can see that Northville really wanted to get deep in there, and particularly when you have the Misfortune that can follow up from such a long range with that ultimate, that's making life as even like a Viego trying to fight around the fringes, or the Jinx who does have the Lulu to back them up, are seriously in danger. So I'm liking the heavy dive, but on the other side, you survive that engage, get one reset, you have 2 reset champions already, and things get spicy from there. So I believe you might actually be muted on VMix Greyheart there. As, you know, we do some things in the background to keep ourselves sane while we have this one music loop going over and over, but I'm kind of sad that I didn't get to hear Greyheart there, but that's okay.
Well, you know, saying all sorts of interesting things about how exciting it is to be here. Those things all remain absolutely true. My apologies there. We're just in the delay. I put myself on pause on mute on VMix. Alex, I'm sure you would have been delighted if I'd kept on mute the entire time, but as it is, we get to talk a little bit about this Viego and about East Kentwood's jungler.
Yes, and yeah, because Much Bad PvP is the highest ranked player in this lobby, at least from what we know. Of course, rank doesn't speak to everything, and of course, we've cast ourselves a lot of university, collegiate kind of level competition. We do know that sometimes squads of lower rank on paper players can start punching very much above their weight, but that star performance on one player can equally turn things around, and this player on such a dangerous champion is going to be one to watch.
3 of our 4 last picks all are going to be AP heavy, with the Kennen and the Vigar and the Zoe all locked in alongside the Ornn in the final part of Pick and Ban.
So that Ornn is now going to be absolutely crucial for East Kentwood, because that's the one thing that's trying to slam the door shut on this heavy CC engage. If you buy enough time for a sleep to come in, for Jinx and Viego to start popping off, that's your window into this fight. But if you don't manage to do that with a well-timed Call of the Forge Guard or a Searing Charge from your knockup, your backline's looking very, very flimsy.
It is, and I guess that's where East Kentwood's support on the Lulu's going to come in pretty big as well.
Yes, for sure, because you look at the Zac, and you can interrupt the knockup with some well-timed Ornn charges and stuff like that. That's a bit harder to time. Easier one to do, though, is you see the target that the green glob is flinging themselves at, press ult on them. Knocks them up. Starts to kind of stop that heavy engage coming in. But the problem is, it's not just the Zac you've got to pay attention to. There's a Rel, there's a Vigar potentially getting a cage onto some key members too. If things are proactive from the side of Northville, playing defensively from East Kentwood is going to be something very important that they execute well.
All right, well, some of you out there in chat might be unfamiliar with MASSP and might be wondering exactly what we're seeing here. This is going to be the Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals going up in this grand final. It's going to be a best of 3 match, and just in case you missed it earlier, I'm Stanley Greyheart Barker, and I'm delighted to be joined by Alex Nymera Hapgood.
And the one time I'll say it's better than the background music, Stan. But yeah, great to be here again. Of course, kind of a little bit of introducing ourselves. We actually met casting some university stuff over in the UK on the other side of the Atlantic, but we're stateside at this time. We have ourselves a bit of experience casting some more academia-related leagues. I'm not familiar with these players myself. However, that does give us a great chance to have a first impression of them. So I'm really looking forward to see who our stars are going to be from this series, because as much as, you know, the second and third impressions are quite important too, that first one where you can start landing home how well you perform in pressure situations is really quite important.
It's quite interesting now, Mary, because we almost get 2 sets of first impressions. We get the first impressions as the OPGGs get fed through to us, as we see a little bit of what these players could be like, but then we get that first actual eyes-on moment as we get onto the riff for this first game in the best of 3. It'll be really fascinating to see if those expectations that we've set up almost already for these teams get subverted, or actually they tend to be entirely true coming into game number 1. Based on what you've seen purely, however, from that draft that we've just seen, you spoke about the engage potential that Northville have. Northville coming in as our highest seed in this tournament, the number 1 seeds in comparison to the number 2 seeds who have both made it through this 18 bracket. We probably like what we're seeing from the engage based on what you were saying.
For sure. in terms of like an identity of what you're doing is that full set of 5 champions. Yes, I mean, it's very obvious what you want to do, and everything kind of works in combination towards the same goal. On the other side, though, you kind of take the identity aspect away from it. You look at the individual pieces. Viego and Jinx, I don't know if anyone's been watching the NA in-houses, which have been often hosted on Core JJ's stream, RJS, a lot of these other NA pros, and into Academy players too. Jinx and Viego are exceptionally strong. That's the way that word works. And you've got both of them now on the side of EKHS. So I'm looking at both these champions saying, okay, if we've got more cohesive teamwork on one side, we have star performances, star champions on the other to keep an eye on.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you to really nail your colours to a particular mast. Are you going red side, blue side? Are you feeling East Kentwood or Northville for game 1?
I'm feeling like waving a bit of the teamwork banner this time, going with the first seed for Northville. I like their wombo combo. They have lots of different combos to work in, and as much as we've got much bad PvP on one of these star champions on the Viego, team fights are going to be hellish to navigate.
I mean, you know how I love to disagree with you, so I'm going to put myself in East Kentwood's corner on this one.
See you on the Rift, Greyheart.
There's just so many possibilities to pop off here, where if one or two of these carries get going, that they can, I'm not going to say solo carries game, because of course League is always a team effort, but they can put themselves in such a good position to pick up the win. Yes, I agree with you, the kind of the mechanics of how they're going to make this team comp work are probably easier for Northville, but I just feel like East Kenwood, maybe they have got what it takes with these the champions that have been drafted and also the players that they've been drafted to. Let's see at the end of game number 1 who left standing tall.
Because, you bring up some good points there, and particularly around this level of play, we have spectated and witnessed so many times that it can just take one person just smashing lane, just play diffing it. Doesn't matter about the matchup, doesn't matter about the combos. Just pull out a really good trade, level 1, level 2, and suddenly that just messes over the whole map. In fact, so actually on the other side of the Great Atlantic, we had one of our own, not collegiate, but university tournaments happen today, our grand finals there. And we saw in that series, even with some like very high ranked players, that we saw one player pops off and they just vertical jungled, and it doesn't matter because that lane is just lost by itself. You can absolutely see that at this level of play, and I'm excited to see who's going to be really leading the charge on that, so we can start building up some of these heroes, going back to those first impressions, saying, hey, I'm going to remember that name.
Before we get onto the Rift, I'll just tell you a little bit about who these two teams have had to beat to get here. Northville in the semi-finals, they beat the Hudsonville Eagles, and before that in the quarterfinals, they took down Fordson Varsity. Over on the other side, EKHS, they had to go through Dakota Lol in the semi-finals. Earlier on, they'd beaten the Cardinal Thunder, and they've, both of these teams, they came in as the number 1 and number 2 seeds. They were most expected to get to the finals. They've proved that point correct. Now they've got this best of 3. We had a few small issues in terms of setting up. Things are always tricky when you get to that grand final. The nerves are more prevalent. Which of the two teams deals with that the best in this scenario, especially where we've had a little bit of a delay in the start of the game? That could very much be a deciding factor.
And to our knowledge, this is being played on a LAN situation too, which is also part of where the issues came from. So I actually used to be part of a gaming society at my own university back when I went there, and we ran LANs every month, and it was a lot of work getting things to work, and we had to rely on a very exceptional tech team to make sure that things worked, and it still broke like almost on cooldown. It seemed like it has just like this one like recurring ability. It's like when you have like hazard events in like a Civ 5 or something like that. And it's like, oh wow, the switch is broken. Lovely, the network's gone down. It just happens in this kind of event. However, being able to hold lands, being able to experience that for these players too is a very valuable experience. Bit less valuable hearing the same track on repeat for an hour and a half. Might want that scrubbed from my mind, and I'll be dreaming of that one.
That's where Silver Scrapes was born, right? We go back to I want to say IEM Katowice, and it was played on like a 12-hour loop or something like that.
I believe it was 8 hours solid of CLG EU versus World Elite. I believe that was the case.
All right, well, I think we are pretty near to ready to get into game to see the action unfold, to see which of these two teams is going to be lifting the crown in the night, trying to put their best foot forward to try and secure the first game win. Give yourself those 2 match points. Both of the team's coaches will have helped them with their drafts. They've now done all they can. It's going to come down to the players on the Rift.
Absolutely. So, again, we've kind of laid down our own little narrative points. These little threads we'll be picking up later as we go on in terms of, okay, right, for us, and not necessarily all of you in chat, but of course for us on the desk, we're looking to see who's actually going to come and just slam expectations out of the wall and say, look, remember my name, remember this game, remember how well we do here. So we're going to start visiting that. Going to start visiting, of course, what's going to happen in terms of the team identity, what's going to happen with like this more cohesive style compared to the more individual style play. And then we get to celebrate how these teams kind of do put one foot in front of the other and just make their way through this series. It's not just one and done. It's not that best of one. You get to adapt, you get to improvise, you get to overcome, and all that other bag rules, nonsense, and stuff. But we have a bit more of a night ahead of us first. Got a couple of games to go through. And it's not even night, actually, over there in the US. I just say that because I've got this outside, because it's winter, and that's not necessarily the brightest time of year. But we've got some hours in front of us to get the
he
gameplay
says,
done.
casually pointing at the Ari shrine.
I was pointing at the window, but yes, there's that too. If you need any more like evidence of my own degeneracy, there you go.
Well, I already have plenty of it, but thanks for giving the stream.
True.
So, coming back a little bit to the game, and if I may, I think that obviously there's some fascinating matchups we're going to pay equal attention to top, mid, jungle, and of course what's happening on the bot lane as well. Of course, as we come into game, but I really want to continue to highlight this jungle matchup, not just because we feel like potentially with this Viego there's an exceptional power point going over to East Kentwood, but also because over on Northville they have picked one of my favourite champions in League of Legends. In my season review at the end of the 2021 season, it turned out there were only 4 champions I'd played enough games on to actually have a record and get stats on them, and one of them was Stretchy Boy. Flubber himself on the Rift. Zach is going to potentially have the opportunity to work magic in this game.
And it's been a little while since Zach has been quote-unquote meta, because Zach is always somewhat viable if you can kind of survive his early game.
Vi was also one of the champions.
Good. See, I'd be making arcane jokes, but I want to keep my powder dry for that. But the thing about something like Zach is that when you're playing into something like Viego, both of them kind of get an easier early game because neither of them really wants to fight level 2, level 3, something like that. You're not going to have your Jin Zhao level 2 invade, something like weird on that front. So for me, I look at both of these junglers and say, all right, okay, your early game where you want to survive, both of you got a bit of a free ride through that portion of it. Where they're going to be starting to make their first impact, though, is going to be vastly different because both of them have different angles to get into lanes. Obviously, you get level 4, level 5 on Zac. Lots of engage range, can kind of hang out in terms of Raptor Pit if someone pushes in too far. Viego, when you start hitting that E against that wall, you get enough movement speed to run into something like top lane a bit easier. So I'm looking at both of these players and saying, okay, right, early farm pathing, we're expecting not so much interaction. How are you first going to pull the trigger?
Quite often before preseason, it would have been that first contest around Scuttle that became so important.
Oh, yeah.
However, in a world now where Scuttle is worth so much less XP, is so much less worth fighting over, feels like we're not going to see that. But yeah, we've got to come towards that sort of that level 3, that level 4, and as you're quite rightly saying, then Imera, that's where the action certainly will start. If we do see Zac able to impact those lanes, able to make the CC chain work to his team's advantage, then yes, that could be a game changer. In the same way, early kills for Viego, that could snowball this game beyond all control.
Absolutely, because as much as we've talked about the team fights and how that's going to be difficult for Viego to play into a cannon ult, play into absolutely everything else, there's not a lot of free space for you to work around. Doesn't stop you from playing individually, playing around the skirmishes. We are waiting on a tech pause because, of course, we are with the way that this evening's gone. We just got to get through it, just got to soldier on. Thanks for staying with us through this, as we're really looking forward to getting into these games. But kind of going back to the preseason point again, just kind of going back towards the game. The big thing with the Scuttle change is that you don't hit level 4 for full clear plus Scuttle now, and that means that you don't have to have these very impactful fights around Scuttle like you're alluding to. Now, this has had kind of like a twofold effect, where there are two trains of thought. One, which is, okay, that means that level 3 ganking junglers are going to be more important. Skip out on that Scuttle. Go kill a laner. Have fun with that. And on the other side, you say, actually, champions which suffered under not being able to fight around Scuttle, stuff like, I don't know, Echoes, Sejuani actually was a little bit better at that, but Zac in itself, right, which don't really want to fight at level 3, can actually just say, I'm going to give up on that. Double Scuttle doesn't mean as much now. I'm just going to wait until my second clear, get much more power farm, and be punished less for it, and impact mid-game where I'm a stronger champion. That's been another school of thought.
As a jungler, I very much like that. I think that it was a smart change coming into preseason. Now that we've brought up the preseason,
sounds like someone that messed up his Scuttle fight, Stan.
Almost consistently. My honestly, we'll come back to preseason in a moment, because one of my biggest flaws as a jungler, and one of the reasons why perhaps my LP and my elo gains were not as impressive as yours, Nightmare, is the fact that I love overcommitting for those early fights. I'm like, yes, we've definitely got Pyro in mid, and then of course my mid laner never actually came over because, you know, why would they? And yes,
as a mid laner, that's a big mood.
That's the one. We have got Loki here to say hello. So
Aww.
Loki has briefly joined the cast. It's nice to have someone who can give some expert analysis. Yeah, back to pre-season. As I was just
Quick,
starting to say,
we've got a pause to get through. Bring out the dogs.
The other two will join us later, I'm sure.
Cry havoc and let loose the greyhounds of war.
Yes, exactly. I'm going to get this pre-season point in if it kills me, Nightmare. We talked a little bit there about the changes to Scuttle Crab. What's been your highlights, or maybe things that you're not liking quite so much about early pre-season?
Trying to think of... I think the two biggest changes outside of the Scuttle have been kind of some of the rune changes. I think they've been very highly impactful, particularly Predator and Glacial. If you are an engaged support nowadays, you don't actually need to take Aftershock. If you're a Leona or an Alistar or a Nautilus, take that Glacial, because those little frozen trails also reduce enemy damage while they're stood on them. It allows you to be tanky and have more continued CC too. So expect a lot of that to come in. A lot of different champions, even stuff like Cho'Gath when he's playing that as well, can take that. Gives you a lot more different options to kind of continue fights while also still being tanky. And then there's also Predator. We talked about this before preseason hit, and it's just continued to be powerful, but it has allowed first off, a lot of junglers who maybe aren't as good at pathing to kind of turn up to the right place in the right time. That's definitely not something to be understated. But because it has quite a short wind-up time, you can activate it in combat and all this other stuff, it kind of allows you an extra amount of safety or aggressive playmaking opportunity, even for stuff like mid lane as well. Like, you're fighting not just as like a jungler turning up to the right place, but a mid laner just popping the go button and turning up to a jungle fight, something like that. So Glacial and Predator, probably the two bigger changes outside of some of the itemization stuff too.
We'll take a little look as we get into game, see just how much of those two things we're going to be seeing. Another thing that we, of course, might see are the new dragons that we're experiencing.
Oh, true.
I have a lot of thoughts in regards to how they're impacting the game in general and the bonuses that you get. However, my question to you is, what are your thoughts about what they do to the terrain of the Rift, having the potential portals and the potential invisibility?
Okay, so actually, thinking about it again, that's actually...
Welcome to Summoner's Rift. A summoner has disconnected. 30 seconds until minions spawn.
Doesn't even have access to the Aftershock because you're not leveling up E level 1 unless you have to get yourself out of a hairy situation. What this does mean is that we have Red Side being able to push in, potentially get some vision, and you can see actually stacking up in this one bush, potentially looking for a late invade. This could really upset that, again, weak early game of someone like the Zac.
It does look like EK are looking for something here. They've left it a bit later. They're just going to turn around for that red buff. So let's see what Mr. Korea and Nad have got to stop this one from happening. Vigo might have to find a quick rotation. Blast Cone is available. It's going to be much bad. Bouncing over the wall. It is going to be a shuriken straight to the face of the Viego. But it does seem like this blue buff is not even going to be contested now, unless that comes in for a smite.
So that's the bubble started, no paddle start. Have to see what's happening in terms of the level 1 abilities too.
Well, the smite's going to be used, but it's not going to be enough to secure the blue buff. And now with EK being zoned away, this is a big win for ND.
And it's health away from the Viego. It's a smite used on a camp that isn't good because it resets an E-start from Zoe at level 1. It's a bold gambit. It's trying to upset, again, the weak early game, but it backfires momentously in this game 1. Got to see how they recover now.
We talked about how rarely you're going to see that Viego going and putting pressure on the Zac early on. Well, when you've got the help of two of your friendos and you've got a bag of CC, potentially this is how you make it work. But this has backfired for EK. They're not going to be significantly down in gold or anything like that, but having had that slower start is massively going to impact getting towards the level 3, the level 4 that we've talked about so much for Zac and Viego.
Already a solid camp behind the Zac, and this again is going to tilt what was meant to be a relatively non-interactive matchup. matchup. It means that you're looking at this bot lane now where the Zac can impact the 2v2 better than most other junglers, just getting that multi-man CC from the Elastic Slingshot. They're going to be farming much more efficiently towards it with a time window advantage against that Viego again. So watch now towards that 2v2, which is where both the junglers are heading towards.
Early poke being put down by the Lulu and the Jinx, unsurprisingly the Make It Rain not quite managing to get through the Jinx's health quite as considerably. Rel has healed up pretty well, but has now lost out on the pots that they had in their inventory earlier on. Meanwhile, we do see Controlling caught out slightly, taking a bit of the damage, some extra AP going the way of the Brandons.
But it's funny you mention those pots because this is what you do with engage into Enchanter supports. You can do one of two things. Either back off the wave completely, allow your jungler to come gank, or you do the opposite. Use all of your pots, fight for priority, and give yourself a better chance at a reset. They've gone to chose to fight, be a bit more bold about things. Now we have to see if they do get that reset and allow themselves to survive the early power of Enchanter in lane.
We are actually seeing a bit of a contest around this bot side scuttle. Meanwhile, up on top side, we do see that Seraphine has been taken down below half health. Tenant's just pushing in, trying to make it harder for Ornn to secure this CS. Finally, we get around to the Viego securing their blue buff.
So it is going to be not really much achieved from the Zac on the first clear of things, but at the end of the day, all they really needed to do is just make sure the bot lane was surviving, and nothing was happening. So they just say, okay, let's go back towards Scuttle, again, prioritize myself just for now, get myself up to those higher levels, but that has potentially allowed Viego to go find a window to impact bot where the Zac couldn't.
It's all about Misfortune and Rel. Now, what are they going to do to escape this three-man gang squad coming down? Bunnyman is in a lot of trouble, goes down first blood as Jinx secures that one.
Oh, just a bit of a timing window error from Northville, because again, what's he saying? You tend to path towards your lane if you do have one of these support matchups which doesn't favor your team. Zac kind of calls off the attempt, says, all right, you're probably okay, bot, but they don't reset. They stick around in lane, and they get punished for it by EK. So, first blood, first kill on that scoreline for the entire series, and it goes the way of the second seed.
Okay, we are going to see that we've got Funny Men not blowing either summoner, but dying. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for Joel the Mole. They'll be glad they didn't die, but they did blow both summoners. 4 summoners still available for the bot lane of EK.
It was a bit of a CC lock. He was a mistake. Wow, I should have flashed that. Well, I mean, that was Spectral Maw into Polymorph, into Traps. That's a whole lot of not moving potential. And as much as you can get out of some stuff with your Crash Down, it wasn't obviously available at that point, or at least it wasn't.
A summoner has disconnected.
Going to come back to us very quickly as we sort out yet another issue.
Yeah, just a couple of pauses, just dealing with getting all of the bugs out of the system as quickly as possible so we can get nice and smoothly through the rest of the series. 4.5 minutes on the clock, and we can already see that advantage being taken, and it was on the back of a Viego play. I felt like the Viego pick was super important. I wasn't expecting it to pay off quite so early, though.
No, particularly with what happened at the level 1, right? Because the it wasn't a late invade, it was kind of like a mid invade where you don't actually quite do it early enough to kind of force them out of the jungle and then like not have a contest. It's not late enough so you're actually catching them while they're tanking a buff as well or something like that. It just goes a bit awry, it's not completely well executed, and we were kind of sat there thinking, oh heck, that's actually really good for the Zac. This is a matchup which, you know, it's meant to be non-interactive, and suddenly you've actually got an artificial advantage created from an early play. But I mean, credit to East Kenwood, because that is kind of finding a play. Maybe you have to flash out of something a little earlier at that point. You do get both sums, and the heal does try and save their support, but not enough at this point. It's kill over to Jinx, so it's not onto the Viego, at least in terms of, because Viego is very, very item dependent and gets very, very strong once you get up to 2 items. I'm actually not sure what build we're going to see here, because we've seen continually nerfs towards the Sundra build from Viego. However, with a lot of crit scaling on his Q and his ultimate, something like Shield Bar and something like Essence Reaver, incredibly bursty, incredibly high damage, and allows you to be a solo carry threat, and particularly for a player which has, again, that kind of tag as the highest ranked player in the lobby as well, could be very important to play towards.
Moving away from the jungles and something that I'm very familiar with, and into the lane kingdoms, what does this mean for the lane? I wanted to ask you before we got into the game with the varying matchups, who was being favoured. We'll come back to top and mid in just a moment, but we've now got that first blood going over to the ADC Enchanter combo that is the Jinx Lulu. Is life now just almost untenable for Misfortune and Rel in terms of any aggression?
So the swing point of this, and again, kind of mentioned in regards to how the jungle paths towards that lane, you need to just get a really good first reset to make sure that you're not down first item. You're not down like a pickaxe to, I don't know, a longsword or something like that, or something equivalent, right? When you have lightning quivers coming in. I thought that this was going to be the case where actually, because of that jungle advantage, you have to play more respectfully as the Jinx Lulu. That doesn't quite happen. So whereas I thought it was meant to be a pretty good laning situation, you now have to sit under turret, potentially lose a lot of stuff, give over a preferential reset to the other lane. This is now getting quite difficult up until you do get towards those really scary engage combos at level 6 for this lane.
We didn't see it in that sort of on the screen so much, but we saw via minimap a small contest going on between Zac and Viego around the bot side Scuttle Crab. How crucial was that for the game plan at East Kentwood, that Scuttle Crab does go the way of Viego, sending Zac up to the top side to secure a scuttle of their own, while we can see Viego double back and make this gank?
In isolation, it shouldn't matter, right? Because you have the communication of, okay, I didn't get the bot scuttle, I'm going to go top side, we're not going to lose out in jungle advantage, but you have to play safe bot, because again, we know where our priority is in terms of where do we have our agency on the map. Most of it's going to be the Zac in neutralizing the Viego, looking for a big play in terms of the engage, particularly when you get that level 4, level 5. But obviously that wasn't communicated effectively enough. It doesn't reach the bot lane doesn't get the memo. They don't put a ward down either. Viego gets a pretty easy sitting kill there. So for me, in terms of the individual, so going back to the original question, the scuttle being lost is not the problem. It's the communication after that point to make sure that the whole team understands what the implications of that are.
Yeah, where could the Viego be? Oh, yes. He's here. Oh, we're dead.
See, I know that we have Where's Wally over stateside. They call it Where's Waldo. I never really heard of the Where's Viego. I could definitely get behind that. That's called jungle tracking. And Stan is doing something off camera, and this worries me because this means he's had a bright idea.
Well,
oh no!
You know,
oh no! He's actually got. He has something relevant.
It's
this is not planned.
This was my Halloween outfit this year, so.
It's terrifying. I can understand why.
You'll excuse me for not putting on the red and white jumper, but yes, we wondered where's Viego. Now where's Greyheart? Yeah, right here. The real question is, where's Nymeira's sanity gone?
It's gone along with the music loop, which we had to listen to for near enough 2 hours. Okay. Once again, just kind of waiting on some updates for what's happening in that game. Again, first blow, the first swing comes out from East Kentwood, and it does land pretty heavily. Of course, at least it's not the AD carry dying, so if we see like a fast push kind of coming in, and well, actually, the very worst case scenario is this turns into a bot lane dive onto a zero sums MF, and you get like a huge combo coming in, and they die under turret. That's probably the worst case scenario. I think you can just about salvage it if you allow the MF to kind of receive that farm under tower. At least there are some teleports to respond to it, but that's kind of like the next potential turning point in this admittedly short amount of game.
Exciting news. It feels like we're going to be able to add to that length of game in just a moment as we're able to get ourselves back on to the rift. We talked a lot about the jungle, talked a lot about the bot lane. In a moment, Nymeira, I'm going to come to you and ask what your expectations are looking towards the top and mid. I think I know what the answer will be when we look at top, when we see Kennen versus the against the Ornn. To hear your thoughts on the mid lane matchup as a mid laner yourself, but we are indeed back into the game. Let everybody rejoice.
So speaking of that mid lane, it does actually look like Viego, as the producers are very much on point, spotting much bad PvP coming in there. Might not be about the 1v1 at all, might be another gank.
There is a heal available for controlling the flash in, and despite the wall being put down, the Brandons has to play this one very, very carefully. In the end, they burn the flash off Viego without losing a single summoner for themselves.
I don't know whether the sleep wasn't available at that point, but it's a flash committed from much bad PvP, and there's no chain CC to come in after that point. Actually, Veigar just waddles his way back on out of there, going to be able to catch most of this wave. Doesn't have any mana, which kind of hurts in the farming department. This is Veigar, he's sticking around a little bit, looking to maybe freeze it out, but have to see if there's a sleep.
Viego still trying to make something happen. The Sleep Patrol bubble will connect. The Power Star comes through, forcing the flash out of Veigar, who maybe just overstayed a little too long with so little mana.
Another auto, an Electric Q, an Ignite. There is enough damage there to finish off that kill. They don't overstretch right now, and the potential of a stretching strike coming in was, of course, waiting in the wings around the Raptor pit, as Zac doesn't enter the fray. In the elongated trade, Veigar does blow the summoner at least.
teleport used here by the Vigar. We are, of course, looking at the difference between a flash, a teleport Vigar, and a flash ignite Zoe. That ignite still available for controlling on top of any other spells they should feed later on. Meanwhile, much bad PvP find their way down to the bot lane where they had great success last time, but this time they walk over a ward and try.
So we can already see that CS advantage starting to open up at this point. It's a bit of a slow crash coming in from these Campwood. They haven't got to that point yet. And again, this was kind of like the real danger point. We're thinking, oh, maybe there's a dive coming in. But of course, Rel manages to get back to lane because Viego decides to head towards mid instead. And while it has opened up to pretty much the first blood gold being the difference between the two teams right now, we'll check in as that goes on later into the game. Nothing has been blown completely out of the water just yet.
Not at all. Surprisingly for me, we're not seeing any kind of big CS advantage up on top side, with Seravan able to do a pretty good job of finding level CS to Mr. Korea.
So this is going to be a bit of an uneven wave, so we'll probably even out to a minimal lead. But you're right, yes. I mean, Ornn is surviving lane, and as much as Cannon is a lane bully, Ornn is pretty survivable too, unless you're against Conqueror champions where you can get all in by stuff like a Renekton very early. So yes, very well done by Seravan to survive the 1v1. Is it going to survive a Cannon?
Available, will dash, will look to find the stun. Much bad PvP is going to get stunned up. Mr. Korea, stay safe, keeps Flash alive.
Oh, swing and a miss on the Spectral Maw, doesn't get the stun, so no follow-up really available at that point. Potentially would have forced out a flash. Don't think it would have ended up being a kill at that point. You don't have a full item, you don't have a Heartbreak Strike or anything like that. So just a bit of an annoyance for that Cannon, and both top laners are probably going to have to be forced to reset. However, the Cannon doesn't, well, I was about to say doesn't blood TP, actually chooses to at this point.
Nymera, we are past the 8-minute mark, so both the neutral objectives available to these two teams are on the map. What do we expect to see going forwards in terms of both teams playing for these?
So it will depend on where the junglers kind of choose to muscle their advantage in first. Of course, we don't have teleport flanks available for a potential dragon fight, but Viego is saying, all right, let's go hammer down on top. Maybe we can get ourselves some gold from a continual Herald.
Knockup connects onto Mr. Korea, who's already used the dash. The flash will be followed up on the jump forward from the ultimate of much bad PvP, trying to find something onto Mr. Korea, but they have managed to escape into the wind. Meanwhile, down on bot side, Zac setting up for a potential elastic slingshot.
Setting up, does have level 6, that's 3 ranks into that E, see if it can land.
It doesn't connect, does force the flash out of the Jinx. The stretching strikes aren't going to hit, and with a single zap to the back of Flubber, it is going to be the great escape.
Okay, good discipline from the bot lane of East Campwood. We've got a sleep landing in mid, but of course no mana left for a paddle star. And we're seeing a lot of very tentative plays coming out, right? It's not completely decisive plays. You're not having teleports being committed. You're not having huge amounts of members roaming around the map. It's just looking to see if there are any openings available on the map. And actually, more often than not right now, it isn't really leading to much besides just a reset and a tad bit of annoyance.
It's not. Meanwhile, up on top side, we are going to see that gap starting to appear between Mr. Korea and Seravan. The back was forced out, the teleport's already used by the Ornn, so going further and further behind, and Loki's not happy about it.
As I say, the crowd's going wild back there. Don't know why they're excited about Macro. I'm getting much more excited about it than I am at this point. But yes, after all things said and done in terms of that top lane, that small advantage has actually opened up in something, because Ornn had to walk past the wave, lost a couple of minis to tower, and much bad PvP didn't land a couple of those Ws. So Cannon soaks up a lot of pressure, so credit to Mr. Korea at that point. But in the mid lane, we have a Predator popped.
Yeah, the Sleepy Trouble bubble is going to connect. The Brandon's in a lot of trouble. They went aggressive with the Event Horizon, but they're the ones
Just
now.
gonna water him.
The Ignite burning down. It's a straight out solo kill coming in and now controls the lane.
Oh, this is the problem with extended trades versus a Zoe. You have so much extra tact on damage when you start casting summoners. If you cast one in return, that's an extra proc of the W. In early levels, when you don't have many ranks in any ability, it doesn't matter that you haven't maxed out that W. Comes in with the Ignite, has the extra damage that Electrocute 2, and controls that lane.
This all leads to the Hextech Dragon being secured by EK. It will lead to a Chemtech Dragon second, which means the soul this time around isn't going to be able to fancy new ones. Here's what went down.
Here's what happens. It's CC potentially looking to be traded for CC, but the cage doesn't land, so controller just slams in the autos. Early levels again, doesn't matter that you don't have too much attack damage from these mages. Picks up a Prowler's Claw for good measure,
Yeah.
for close distance, and Vigar goes down.
Meanwhile, down on bot side yet again, potential fight. Stun is going to connect, forcing the flash out of Funnyman, who is going to find dismount out to safety, but losing the flash for that privilege.
So, again, it's something away from this bot lane of Northville, but it's not denying that much CS. It's still getting picked up under tower. You still got that MF doing bits and pieces, controlling, looking for a bubble, has a portal jump.
Oh, the flash being used by the Brandons, but here comes Viego with Vigar no longer having a flash available. The only Vigar to be seen now is for the red team, with East Kentwood getting themselves yet another kill in mid. This is 3 kills to 0. This is a 600 gold lead.
And it gets desperately close because you can see you've got that dark matter available on the ultimate. It just being available to get that low HP execute. Trying to get an extra auto in. Maybe an extra Q would have been pretty borderline in terms of kill threat. Doesn't manage to get it in time before the Viego comes in. This is how the extended trade happens again. Once again, it's Vigar trying to push up, trying to get something onto the Zoe, but Zoe just runs them down in the elongated lane. Has another paddle start, and yes, it forces out a flash, trying to look for that outplay, but the jungler from East Kentwood arrives first.
Yeah, exactly that. And it was that literally arriving just a split second too late to have any part in either saving the Vigar or killing the Zoe. Again, it just comes down to the difference of the timing on the arrival of Viego. It feels like that's been true in almost every lane so far, as we now do see NAD putting their attention towards top side. Let's see if they can make any sort of play towards Seraphim.
Okay, so just looking in terms of potential responses, of course you do have that 1W, can get you out of some of the CC, or at least just keep you unstoppable during it. Mr. Career looking to crash the wave. I think Zach is just there to try and save him from it, but leaves too early.
Zach is gone, and so might Mr. Karibi in just a moment. Much bad passing the kill over to Seraphim before inhabiting the body of Kennen. Also already has picked up the Herald as well, so may well look to pop this one down on top side.
And in episode 1 of this great riveting series, I think we have our title for the episode. It's timing, and in this case, it's kind of unfortunate timing for Northville, because they're looking to try and set up these plays, look to play a little bit defensively, secure a good reset on bot, secure a good reset on top. But actually, Zach leaves just a little too soon on both of these occasions, but now has another chance to turn the tides in the bot lane.
Flash already burnt by the by the Jinx, and it is going to be Lulu just left completely for dead. This time we do see the Zac arriving at a fortuitous moment, able to get themselves onto the scoreboard, most importantly passing that kill over to their bot lane.
Well, you know what they say, a broken clock is right a number of times a day, and this is one of those times where Zac gets it right. And of course, these other previous plays weren't the wrong idea, it was just slightly mis-executed. This one, very importantly, lands at the right point, but Mr. Career got out again.
Has got the flash available, dashes out to safety. Flash from Seraphim is going to in turn force the flash out of Mr. Career, who gets themselves out in the nick of time. Meanwhile, this last exchange shot is going to connect straight away. This time, controlling gets obliterated. That's going to be good gold being passed over to the Vigar.
And that's what they were trying to achieve all these other times. I would question whether that's a particularly good idea in this matchup, because actually what you can do is hold the Zoe at range to say, all right, try and jump forward, see what happens. As we see what happens when Zac jumps forward in the bot lane in this replay, it has to catch one of them. Lulu doesn't flash out in time. Does end up being that kill going over to Northville.
It is, and then this happens in mid. Or
It does. So, looking up to... okay, so this is actually going to be the first play in terms of what happens with that Herald, because actually so much is happening. Need to talk about the objective player things too, as opposed to just everything else in terms of those kills. It's going to be 5 plays down. We did see that. We did see that whole turret go down. It does go down a bit slowly, because of course towers get a lot of extra resist when you take down lots of plates at once. Huge first plates, first tower going down to the side of East Kentwood. And then we finally come around to what the heck happens in this mid lane. It is actually going to be the jungle difference happening in the mid lane. Already saw the Viego towards top, and then CC champ comes through. My flash to counterplay that.
Zac's starting to show a little bit of what we know that champ can do and the trouble it can create for laners. I called out that they'd passed that kill over to the bot lane. I thought it had gone to the Misfortune, and now as the Eclipse completed. But no, it was our Frozen Fist Flubber Boy who had actually secured that first kill that Envy actually get in this game. Taking it all for themselves. What a greedy boy.
Well, if we're going to go focus on those jungles, we have one of our star players who set up a much better PvP on one side, trying to make a lot of these plays. But actually, Nat on the other side doing a good job in themselves. So we have this dragon started up, got a big fight, first chance to see the wombo.
Both teams want this Chemtech. That's going to be a beautiful time. The Brandon gets the first kill, and it's going to be one for Joel as well. Kennen gets into the party as well, picks up a double. Mr. Korea does well. Funnyman wants to chase down the last remaining member of East Kenwood and has done a great job with that kill. Will be passed over to the Vigar as well. 2 kills for Vigar, 2 kills for Kennen, 1 kill for Misfortune, and a dragon going over to Envy. That was the play they needed.
Okay, let's go back to those threads we set up. We said, okay, Star plays on one side. Let's see this Viaga. Let's see this Jinx popping off. And we've seen bits and pieces of that. But you know, the other thread we laid down, it was about the wombo. It was about the team play, cohesion, and they have been given precisely one slim opportunity to pull that off in the first 16 minutes, and it leads to a whole team wipe. It leads to an objective. It leads to a huge swing in the momentum of this game towards Northville.
It all starts around this dragon. We saw the early teleport from Orm, but it leads to this fight as Envy get there in time.
You can see that the Lulu ult is available. It just doesn't come through in time to deny that CC. And even if it did, you've got the Rel coming in straight afterwards. The stack happens, the wombo comes afterwards. Huge damage, great execution coming in from Northville.
And right at the end, we do see the Jinx dies. Bad goes to worse, and yeah, that's a huge game-changing moment. It swung the gold lead over in favor of North Vale Aether Seeds. In this game, they picked themselves up the blue side. They also picked up that dragon, which means that there's not that stack going on for EK.
Yes.
We now know exactly what rift we're going to be dealing with as well.
Yeah, so we've got that Cloud Rift coming through, so you've got those extra speed zones going between the different parts of the jungle, but now we're out of that stack 5-player scenario. We come back into a more broken map, and Mr. Korea was potentially a little caught out again. Much bad PvP, still looking for something, but not pulling the trigger just yet.
Instead, we're just going to see things being played nice and steadily by the Ken up on the top side. The same is not true here. The stretching strikes dodged away from beautifully by the Jinx, keeping themselves out of harm's way.
Okay, so very close on both sides there, because actually if that sleep lands, you're looking at potential turnaround kill, and then you've got the Jinx running down, and you have to give up probably your mid lane tower at that point. So, bit of a missed opportunity from both sides, as Zac doesn't connect with any of their skills too. So, as much as like, wow,
I think it was because of a beautifully timed Gale Force as well that the Jinx escapes.
Oh, very true. You're absolutely right. I can see that cooldown there as I was trying to keep an eye on the whole picture. Missed out from the tree within the woods. Not often I end up doing that one. So normally the other way around. Like, wow, I'm going to focus on this one thing. To completely forget about the whole team fight happening behind it. But in this game, it's kind of hard to take your eyes off of that wombo combo. And you can see, again, as much as the members were starting to split out into their individual lanes again, there's another attempted big group to play again from Northville.
To paraphrase you, you said earlier on that you really like North Vale's ease of execution that they have with this comp. It feels like right now in what is essentially the mid-game, that's been very much so the deciding factor on how these kills have all been passed over to a Vigar. A Vigar who is, some would consider, almost the ultimate ease of execution champ, as they disappear into the mist at the last second before the four-man gank can hit them. And now all of a sudden you've got a champion who's 3-2-3, has got that mid hit completed, is building up even more AP with every ability that connects onto a champion, and is suddenly just becoming a horrible little monster, seeing why they are the Yordle Lord.
Yeah, they're waddling their way back into lane. Second Herald actually been claimed by Northville this time, as opposed to the first one being picked up by East Kenwood. It's not actually going to lead to that tower going down. You can see actually Northville don't really want to stick around and chance that play, and as we say that, have to chance a jungle fight as much as PvP. It finds a window to take half the HP of Zac.
The blob form, the passive, is available for now. Should they have needed it there, instead they're just going to get zoned a little bit away from where Viego was lying in wait. We've seen quite a few of these lying in wait plays from Much Bad PvP, but in the last few minutes, they haven't been being able to be turned into kills for the jungler for East Kenwood.
No, and actually most of the game has been Viego looking for those plays, looking for the big opportunity, just not quite landing. It's like 80% of the way there, but actually in that last 20%, W goes wide, it hits a minion, Cannon actually outplays a little bit in that front. Whereas on the other side, again, going to that ease of execution has definitely favored Northville so far. Quite easy to catch a Vigar when they're this far up.
Yeah, Vigar escaped into the mist last time around. This time the mist is put all around him. Much Bad using the ultimate, jumping straight over the horizon, trying to chase down the Vigar. Has got the burn going on, has to be careful with the primordial burst that can come through. It does not come through. Instead, Zoe secures the kill, and it is going to be Much Bad PvP doing all the work, and Zoe reaping the rewards.
But gets really close. That's like half a second away from that ultimate being fired, and probably taking down the Viego with it. So finally, we see an opening being made by one of these solo laners, stepping up a little far. just one too many times. So that is going to be a kill going over to the side of East Kenwood. Now the question is, what can they do with it? There's actually not really that much to do. You know, the waves are already kind of like where they're going to be in the state for this next dragon spawn, and we're kind of waiting for the next big play. This has not really led to that much.
One of the things I really like here, Nightmare, is that we are seeing both of these teams playing so respectfully, so carefully, not in a passive way. It's not like both teams being
no, they're definitely
the word
looking
boring, but they're both looking for the plays. But at the same time, they're so aware that a loss in this game, small mistakes, could lead to you being essentially 2 match points down, knowing that you've got to come back and reverse sweep this series. North Vale now, they know they're the ones with their foot on the accelerator. They turn themselves towards this first of a potential many Cloud Dragons.
Oh, that's the Jinx. Solid steals it!
Oh, the super mega death dragon is going to be Jinx's reward.
I think that was Mordekaiser's last iteration, actually, if you're going to use that kind of terminology. But Jinx doesn't really give a damn. Gets the low HP, epic monster execute, and that's a freebie because you're looking at this red team and thinking, all right, okay, they probably don't want to give those grouped up fights. They probably don't want to give that easy chance to wombo again. But actually, speaking of that, North will say, screw this. Let's go try and find another ability to get things into a 5v5 situation where we excel. Briefly look towards that Baron before falling off it.
That was a bit of a heartbreaker for North Vale. It looked like they had that Cloud Dragon free and easy, but Jinx had other thoughts about it. And, well, you know, not quite the level of kills that they get in certain episodes of Arcane. Jinx are still pretty happy with the end result there.
For sure. So let's talk about the implications for that again. Just think, okay, cool, it's a dragon. What does that mean? It means that the soul is one dragon further away. It means that there's another less reason to fight, but they're choosing to fight anyway.
Corner Forge Gorge used by Seraphim, but it's the Brandon who absolutely eviscerates the Lulu, leading to a bullet time, picking up the kill onto much bad PvP. Mr. Korea will, and with a little bit of help from that, chase down Seraphim. It's going to be a 3-4-0 going over with only controlling G1 alive. They find the turret, they force the flash out of the Jinx, who gets stunned up regardless. A 4th kill comes in. Zoe's still in bot lane, and a potential turret into Baron play now for North Vale.
But what are East Kenwood doing? They just had such a good passive play, denying that dragon. Great steal. And what that means is that you don't have to 5v5. That's what all of that means. That's the implication of making sure that they're further away from Soul Point. And then they commit into one anyway. They get womboed. They've seen it once. Maybe shame on someone, but doing it 2 times is a little bit different on that front. They give him a bit of a freebie and gonna go back into that replay and say, again, okay, cool. You think you've caught someone out, and, well, the cage comes down and denies all of that.
Yeah, no Baron security North Vale, but they get so much regardless on the back of this fight.
They do, and Mistfortune's there in time. It's a big swing and play because you're not just getting yourself finally that outer tower broken down, you're giving yourself extra windows into playing. Earn the sleep misses. There's a stolen flash though, still available for Zoe. Now we see another kind of rushed Baron.
Both of these teams seem determined to take this Baron or die trying, and right now it looks like the aggression is being put down by EK. They lost last fight when they went aggressive. Let's see if the same might happen again. Stun, connecting on the most bad PvP, manages to get the ultimate out, Lulu keeping them alive. They flash themselves out to safety. In goes the, in goes
there's Zach. Zach's got in.
Is so exciting. This is just a big old turnaround. North Vale getting catch after catch after catch. The bullet time is back available again. The Brands takes a lot of damage from the Rockies of G1, but it's not going to be enough to secure any more kills.
Oh, such a fractured fight. And honestly, a lot of it is of North Vale's creation because there was a pivotal Vigar cage to split the team as we saw East Kenwood trying to make an ingress into the enemy jungle. I'm sure we'll see it on a replay so you get it. Doesn't end up getting into a huge advantage for either team, though. A paddle star just wide. A couple of kill combos just about missed out on, but both these teams completely down to scrap.
The fight's so exciting that the very word rel escaped my mind. Here's how it went down.
And this is that Vigar cage, which is so important. Right? That, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, okay, we got to make sure we highlight that. Got to make sure we see that. That's the missed paddle star. A lot of these things are so close to turning things this way, then the other way. We do get that final kill coming down onto Diego, and Zach goes in for the re-engage, but oh my gosh, it is a game of inches.
So many champions escaping with so little help here. That you see that rocket almost killing the Brandons. You saw a turret shot that almost killed G1. You saw Rel escaping with next to no help as well. We could have easily had, like, I'm not going to say a double ace, but 7 kills there. Instead, it's just going to be the one. It's going to be the one onto much bad PvP. He's now running that 1-3-3 scoreline. Potentially not what they're going to have been hoping for coming into this game as a bit of a superstar for East Kentwood. Now they've got to try and help turn this game around because it's 4,000 gold to the good for Northvale with another dragon spawning soon.
So we have a lot of items coming in at this point, reaching into 2 items. Jinx is kind of ready to pop off at this point, if you're actually given the space to actually play. Because if that Vigar is down, how do you move past that? You only have 1 flash, and that's down currently. You have a cleanse, that's great, but you need to save that for something like a cannon or something like the Rel W. I'm looking at this Jinx, which is the core of a lot of the continued DPS for East Kentwood, and these fights are becoming very dangerous and difficult to navigate for them.
Ornn is topside without teleport, short of another Super Mega Death Rocket coming in and stealing away a dragon. You've got to feel like this one is going to be going over to Envy, but they also realize that they have given up all push priority in mid and potentially a little bit of pressure around the Baron, so Straken not going to be started up just yet as a result.
Okay, so this is the objective tug of war now, because again, as we said, East Kentwood probably don't want to go into enemy territory, into enemy vision, and say, go on, take a swing at us, see if you can get an engage on. What they're choosing to do instead is to look towards splitting the map, threaten that Baron, but actually, given that Northville can kind of just split their members across the map, take down that dragon with less members than the full amount, there's going to be a slow Baron if it is going to be answered into, and they're being quite indecisive about it.
Yeah, almost for a change in this game, the Baron actually not started up, and this time it felt like maybe that was the opportunity to go for it. We also saw the Jinx and the Lulu getting deep into enemy territory there, but fortunately for them, Northvale didn't turn the corner and find those potential kills. They might find some here, though. They're looking for the aggression. The flash over the Chompers. The Brandon is going to force the flash with the Everfrost. Meanwhile, Sleepy just trying to escape with their lives. They're not going to be able to. The bullet time and the slicing Maelstrom ripping through the Mr. Career. Get another kill, and with the pullback coming in from Rel, much bad PvP, will die for the 4th time this game. G1 is going to escape with just the tiniest bit of health, throwing back the ultimate, picking up the kill. Meanwhile, the turret is not going to provide any safety for Seraphine, who dies to that final shot coming in from the double up of this point.
Oh, the tug of war finally ends, and it's somehow not around the Baron, not directly. It's kind of about the not started Baron. It's the peel away, which is a little too slow. And when you have the extra Cloud Dragons, the outer move speed, I guess they're even in this case, but when you have just more decisive moves around the map, there is the chance that you kind of get caught in this encroaching net. And with no smite on the table, you're looking for a miracle paddle star or bust for Kentwood to stay in this game.
Controlling doesn't necessarily know exactly what vision Northvale.
It's a shot in the dark. It's got to be a piglet. It's got to count it down.
Looking for it. They've gone far too early, I feel, to steal anything away here. They're going to escape out into the night. Potentially maybe even look for a second paddle star if there's any time for it. They go in again. They do not manage to steal this one away, though. It's going to be Zach with the smite coming up big for Northvale, who now have a 5,500 gold lead.
The real danger there is actually if Controlling manages to get, I don't know, something like, because of course you can see that smite was on cooldown. I'm actually not sure if the smite was used in that fight top lane. There was a chance that you could have had a stolen smite coming in from that W. You see the, again, that Predator being put in from the Vigar allows you to blow some of these defensive tools in a much easier way than you would do without very important rune at this point. And the engage range and the decisiveness of Northville comes up trumps it. They get themselves the first kills. They make sure that the Jinx is unable to fight. And yes, they do get an ultimate at the end. It's not the consistent DPS. It's not the ability to tear through the backline. See that North will walk away with the team fight win.
When you talk to people about champions they really hate in League of Legends, usually you start hearing them talk about things like the Viego, like the Zoe, that put down so much damage that one-shot you, and they're like, oh, delete it from the game. But actually, when you look at these fights, right now, Zach, with the sheer volume of CC that's coming in, being followed up by the Rel and all the other champions, is undoubtedly doing more work. You see that scoreline, 2-0-10. Incredible KP coming in, second best in this game. No deaths to their name. I don't think we've even seen the passive popped yet. This has been an absolute tremendous showing coming in from Matt.
We've seen exactly one passive popped as far as I'm aware. It was in that crazy fight where we saw like just into the enemy jungle of just around that blue side of Northville. But that's literally been it. And I think what I distill the difference between these two teams is kind of just the understanding of what these champions and teams want to be doing at a slightly higher level. Of course, the mechanics are there from both these teams, right? They're definitely, you know, they know how to play their champions, but you can understand that actually, you know, the Ornn isn't actually there to save the Jinx in a lot of these situations. The Lulu hasn't cancelled out all of these Zac jumps. And on the other side, you can see that actually just very fearlessly jumping forward with flashes from the cannon, with that elastic slingshot, with the Vigor just predatoring into the face of the enemy team. Northville understand their safe distances and how to pull apart this enemy team.
One of the things that we are seeing now on the back of this Baron being secured, we're 30 minutes into the game and we've got a 4-1 set up. Mr. Korea finally securing that top lane tier 1 turret, now potentially looking to rejoin the team as they push in towards the inhibitor.
Okay, so what we're looking for now is to see if there can be some synced waves where we do have this Baron buff. We want to make sure we can flow from one side of the map to the other. Actually trying to take down the inner turrets and then into the inhibitor turrets can be quite hard at timing that, because actually walking between both sides of the map, it's so easy for the defenders because it's not actually a large geographical distance to cover. So you need to make sure you shift between those lanes very, very quickly, and they have found themselves now an opening to get towards mid. Is there going to be a counter engage?
Oh, I thought Much Bad was going to try and pull the trigger on this one. Instead, it's just going to be the inhibitor turret already ripped through an exposed inhibitor. The reward for Northvale off this push.
So that's it's actually Sleep lands. This is the danger.
Lot of damage on the Mr. Career. He's burning down the Ignite controlling. Just found the one shot. This could change the game as we now see East Kentwood pushing forward. Another Sleepy Double One connects. This time onto the rail. Does not catch with the Paddle Star. Just as the Dragon spawned in 20 seconds time, DK managed to find themselves a little bit of something.
Okay, so hero plays from both mids. The first one is the Sleep landing. That does give like the extended chase down, the one shot, the ability to maybe find an uneven numbers fight. But then the cage just stops that in its tracks. No way to keep engaging after that point, and now we do see Kenwood trying to press the advance to try and find something with this time window that they have found themselves. And they might be able to get them. Oh no, there's a pick.
Oh, Much Bad tried to go deep, but it's probably going to pay with their life. The Super Mega Death Rocket blocked by Funny Mendes Zoners used by the Brandons anyway to keep themselves alive. It does still look like a second Dragon will be East Kentwood's reward for their pick, but they still lost their jungler.
But will it? Because you don't have the smite now. Maybe you get yourself the scuttle and stop an immediate response, but there's a teleport from the cannon. They have a flash. I think this is now a done deal.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. East Kentwood not going into this one, and quite rightly so. Teleport was vested by Mr. Korea, as we are going to see more aggression now in the blue side jungle of East Kentwood. Chompers will put down, safety will be secured, but at the cost of the actual flash of controlling.
Yeah, and so maybe your first thought about this play as a spectator coming in is, oh, why the heck is Viego there? Haven't they overstepped? Haven't they just, you know, just fed away a free kill? In one way, you can look at it and say, yeah, okay, it's an overstep from Viego, because, again, this is going right back to the start of it. But you can see the amount of pressure there is to try and use this window of time, because this Sleep landing is like the first good looking we've seen from East Kentwood for quite a long time. But as soon as it starts coming down, I mean, the Ornn is stopped in place. They can't follow up with that ult. A second Sleep lands, controlling, trying to take this game into their own hands, and that's a hitbox and a half, because that looks like it's overlapping the champion model to me. It does lead to kind of a one series of plays for East Kentwood, but it could have been so much better if they didn't give up that pick. But that's just the amount of pressure they're under in this game state.
I mean, you called it out for how well the Brandons have played that one, but that event horizon that stops not only, well, it essentially makes the entire team walk around it, but also stops in place the second activation of the Call of the Forge God was absolutely pivotal to more members not being lost there by Envy. So really nicely played by the Brandons, who's been having an absolutely standout carry performance.
So again, you can see some of the play patterns you can kind of hope for, right? In terms of like, it doesn't matter how bad a game gets, a Miracle Bubble can do a lot for your standing in the game. We've seen a lot of very famous players across a lot of different metas be able to pull out some just frankly ridiculous damage numbers from that champion. And of course, this is going to be the magic pen of the Ludens. It's not going to be something like an Everfrost, which I'm less of a fan of, I'm sorry. You don't have something like a Void Staff to amp up all of the damage yet, but we're getting a lot of damage coming in terms of flat AP, and also some magic pen coming in from the Shadow Flame Sec.
Speaking of flat FP, we've just zoomed in on the Vigor, and this recall will see the Rabadons completed.
Glad to see the observers are having some fun too. Yes, there's going to be a lot of ability power coming from the Vigor. That's actually getting to the point where you step too far forward as the Jinx, or the Lulu, or the Zoe even. Flash or Predator into Q ult, that's probably death at that point, and we'll see you on the end of the respawn timer. Jinx going to try and clear out some vision. Baron is on the table yet again, and maybe there's one last fight. Maybe there's one last miracle play to come in from East Kentwood, but it has to be so well executed, and probably having a handful of luck on their side too. Have to see how they pull it off.
Northvale skirting around, starting this one up. They mostly seem like they want to get the far side out of the opposition. We do see that Much Bad PvP is just waiting in the wings, looking for an opportunity. Baron has gone down to 9k health, but Northvale just still skirting around, keeping it leashed, but not committing either.
So this is one of the difficulties, again, playing around, particularly red side Zoe as well, right? Because Unifire bubbles over the back of the pit, use that terrain towards it.
Trade.
They're actually looking to trade, looking to get something down mid.
Much Bad PvP goes in, has to flash out. Baron is given over to Northvale, a single turret. So far looks like it will be the trade, and there is a potential to push on towards the inhibitor, but surely you're going to get collapsed on if you do that, East Kentwood. That's why they're trying to escape through the opposition jungle, but they are being collapsed on super fast. The Sleepy Trouble Bubble will briefly put paid to that one. The connection is good, but the Event Horizon manages to catch on to controlling. He's just about able to escape with a little help from friends, but the damage comes in, and Nad secures the kill onto Zoe.
Oh, it's a hop, a skip, and a portal jump into the death chamber. Again, you can kind of see, like, the glint in the eyes. They go, okay, the CC's landed, the bubble's landed, maybe we can get a turnaround, but it's just a little too much. It's a little bit of a step far again, and what seemed like split decision-making once again kind of leading to the demise of what Kentwood were trying to achieve in this phase of play. It's a pretty tight affair at this point. You're looking at very slim margins of error between these two, and maybe the difference between this is just going a pixel too far and getting into that Vigor cage. Maybe you can get out if that doesn't land, but see what happens after that. A lot of damage and only one Zoe health bar to take it.
Indeed. Well, that's going to make for an interesting scenario, especially what we saw just before that, the second Baron of the game secured by Northvale. They've got a 6,000 gold lead. They've got an exposed inhibitor and mid to push towards. Let's see where they put their priority. Of course, in 45 seconds time, they have the opportunity to pick up the Cloud Soul.
Do so. It's going to be a Vision game once again played around there, but not before they step off for a bit of a death brush in the other jungle. I see Ornn walking up into the mid lane, controlling. No flash on the Zoe. It's danger. Looking like death.
Oh, danger, danger. Zoe gets caught out by the Emperor and gets absolutely obliterated. The Brandons getting yet another kill onto their opposition mid laner, and immediately attention turned towards this exposed inhibitor. The Brandons forcing double flashes. That's going to be Nad going super aggressive, taking a lot of damage. Good to see that the Jinx can outpour the damage with those rockets. The inhibitor will go down. Gale Force used aggressively by J1, still pouring the damage down onto the Misfortune, not able to secure any kills. Yes, the stun connection is big, but Mr. Korea's even bigger. The slicing Maelstrom, the bullet time, and just like that, EK are no more. They will lose out in game one to Northvale, who will be 1-0 up on the back of two perfectly timed ultimates from Kennen and Misfortune.
Oh, call it a slaughterhouse, because Mr. Korea's slicing Maelstrom cuts through them like cheap pieces of meat. Order up, that's going to be some barbecue ready for the table.
Game one goes to Northvale. The number one seeds are at match point in this best of three to decide who will be the champions. What an absolutely brilliant game of League of Legends we had there. For moments in the early game, it seemed like EK were on top, but on the back of one big team fight on around the Dragon, everything turned on its head.
There was the first wombo to start it off, and that last wombo to end it there. And it's pretty perfect timing that we did get actually just that raid coming in from the other stream. So welcome to it, and welcome to what was one of the better plays that game.
It was absolutely astonishing. I don't know whether or not we get a chance to see the replay of that last play, but the Kennen basically just completely turns things around. Jinx was the one putting out damage after damage, all of the various abilities being used to go aggressively forward. And that was the moment where Kennen decided, let's pull the trigger. And I think we get an opportunity to see that one there, Maren. I'd love you to talk me through what we see when we get that opportunity.
So, obviously, Jinx is so strong right now because once you get that level 9 into your Q, you get so much range. And then Lethal Tempo starts proccing as well. It starts off with the Zoe getting caught out, and you think, okay, right, with Zoe down, less wave cleared. None of these miracle bubbles anymore. There has to be a hero play from someone else. Actually, at this point, I was thinking probably game if you don't have the Zoe there, because you have so much engage. Double flash forced out from that Vigor, who actually has been catching out so many of these members throughout this game. But actually, the problem with the engage not quite landing is actually you give a lot of time and a lot of free stacks to that lethal tempo. Jinx starts popping off at this point. You think, okay, with a reset, you're starting to look really dangerously, but there's a lapse in vision, and Kennen absolutely eats it up. And there you go. That's the Butcher's Knife right into the heart of the enemy team.
Mr. Korea, who had a fairly quiet early game, just playing in that I'm not going to say get matchup, but that slightly slower matchup against the Ornn. Man, they went big in so many of the fights later on, and full credit to Northvale coming in big, taking game number one. We're going to be back for one or maybe even two more games of this series, so please do stick around. We'll be right back. So Northville took game 1 here against East Kentwood, and they're now just one game away from winning this best of 3 series, declaring themselves champions. Let's see if East Kentwood can fight back. I am Stanley Greyheart Barker, and yet again delighted to be joined by Alex Nymera Hapgood.
Delight is mine, and feeling particularly delightful after seeing some awesome wombo combos come out of Northville, because right at the start of the game, I was like, okay, yeah, I really like the wombo. I'm going to put like my own bet if I was a betting man behind them. And they showed that they understood their compositions, that they did deserve that title of that first seed coming into this. However, now I would really like to see East Kentwood come back in Game 2 and give us a full series.
Okay, bands already flying thick and fast. Zach taken off the table by East Kentwood along with Vex and Misfortune. Over on the other side, Riven, Yumi and Hecarim banned away.
So last time we actually saw the Fiora band in the first round of bans. I wonder if that will actually get through this time. Other things are, there was a Corki band, a lot of different things which are left up from the first pick and ban. So we do have a bit of a, what's the word? Iteration coming in, and we do also have, I believe, a change of sides.
We do. Well, East Kentwood going over to blue side, having first pick. Last time we saw it be the Misfortune by Envy. This time EK pick up the Victor.
Okay, so it's not too dissimilar to something like the Viger that was played last game by their opponents. It gives that zone control, it gives that scaling, it gives the ability to play behind a very strong backline.
It does. Over on the other side, looks like that Jin is going to be locked in with the Misfortune banned away. Going to see something a little bit new coming in for Northville's ADC.
Okay, but a little bit of something familiar if this is locked in alongside it. It was the Rel Hobbit, and that was, of course, one of the backline access pieces which Northville used to fuel their wombo combo. And not having the Misfortune ultimate really doesn't help with that. However, another thing which just reaches all the way through the team fight is a Vel'Koz ultimate.
It sure does. I don't remember the last time I got to see Vel'Koz in competitive play. And certainly not the opportunity to cast it. So delighted to see this one. Those of you who play a lot of solo queue will have been frustrated by it down on bot lane. Of course, traditionally considered to be a mid laner, though arguably has seen more play as support in recent years.
Especially in competitive settings. The times where you see Vel'Koz locked into mid, and actually I assume it's going to be mid lane in this game too, is because you see the matchup immediately in that Victor, unless the Victor is going to be flipped up to something like top lane. It's obviously not going to be in the bot lane right now. We have seen a couple of bot lane Victors played around the world, but first try Victor to top lane is an option, but Vel'Koz into control mages is really dangerous because a lot of control mages don't have sustain, so they can't go through the poke, and he outranges them too. So he's just going to sit there, spam Qs, hits enough of them, you just have to leave lane. Very dangerous pattern for control mages to play into.
If this Taric and all its cosmic radiance gets locked in, it will certainly reveal a lot about what's going on with Envy's side of the picks. And with that locking completed, certainly looks like we've got ADC mid support in that order with the Jhin, the Vel'Koz, and the Taric. The Leona locked in over on the other side of the rift means that something akin to that Rel that we saw last time round out of Envy has been picked up by EK. And it almost feels like these two compositions are switching in place with each other.
So Taric is good into the Leona in isolation. Very much helps just saying, you're going to jump onto me, fine, get a stun, have all these heals and shields to try and eat yourself through. It's not going to work if you're the one engaging. But into a Victor and Ashe, that's kind of rough. You're heavily outranged, you have to deal with a lot of different zone control, lots of slows, you're not going to be able to get into really engage with anything. Unless you start pairing it up with something super heavy dive. I'm actually looking at something like Nocturne being a potential option here, where you can start just flying in with the Tarikal on top of you, get on top of your target, have that stun too, and lock someone down just beyond all recognition at that point. You need to have some kind of dive to come in though.
Second band phase coming in from East Kentwood is going to be targeted towards the top side, the Kennen and the Aurelia, both being banned away. Of course, that Kennen from Mr. Career last time round, absolutely outstanding, a big part of the victory being secured by Northville. Northville, however, they decide to take away the Viego that have just had played against them and has such priority for East Kentwood. They also deny the Fiora from the top side before hovering and locking in a Fiddlesticks for themselves.
Well, that's dive. He's definitely going to be making his way somewhere into the team fight. And we have, again, kind of a similar kind of identity in terms of let's get onto the back line, let's have huge team fight ultimates, and we'll play around just our cohesion, right? It's not as intuitive as MF plus Rel, where you just have like huge CC with the Zac on top of that too. And one of the other problems is if you have the Jarvan locked in against you, Jarvan makes his way onto the backline just as they're trying to set up their ultimates. Good chance that they get cancelled. Good chance that they get picked off by huge engage by Leona too. This is looking like a much more even draft to me.
We could very easily end up with a place where we end up with a Cataclysm stopping one team one side and a Crow Storm eating up on the other side, and then just never the twain shall meet. Meanwhile, the final lock-ins potentially towards the top side of the map. The Cho'Gath and the Yone both locked in. Drafts are completed. I must for a moment bow to your superior judgment from last game. You called ease of execution. You called Northville to take the win. You were absolutely spot on. I had to eat my words on that one. What are you feeling coming into this game?
I'm feeling very confused, Stan. That's my main thought. It's not nearly as clear-cut because you actually have lots of people who can turn around things in their own way, because you have like Victor, who with a good enough Chaos Storm probably just ends the fight. On the other side, I think I am going to give it to Northville again, because I've seen what Yone's doing in laning phase. Lethal Tempo has done a lot for that champion. A Fate Sealed on top of the Crow Storm, on top of everything else. Seems like a lot of different ways that you can just kind of end the game through one team fight again. I think that it's just a lot more individual options and opportunities for one person to just heavily carry. Okay, well, you've gone for Northville. It feels like it's my destiny to disagree with you, not just tonight, but just in general. So I'm going to go right ahead and say East Kentwood bounce back, take us to a game 3. They're the ones this time that potentially have the ease of execution coming in. So many engage tools, solar flares, cataclysms, nom from the Cho'Gath. I like what they're bringing to the table. I do agree with what you're saying about Yone. It feels like it's arguably the most overpowered champion in the game on the back of Lethal Tempo. It can do so much, but I'm going to go against my better judgment, specifically against you, and say East Kentwood to take us to 1-1. It's very dangerous to define yourself by another person, Stan. Just throwing that out there. You know, might not want to tie yourself to me quite so heavily. I know we have like this nemesis relationship, but like maybe we can get like some neutral ground at some point one day. I mean, there is something to be said about the Yone diving into potentially Leona stuns, potentially into Ash arrows, into gravity fields. Like, if you're going in alone, you're going to have a really bad time. Luckily, you got a couple of dive buddies coming in there, and you have a Taric ult on top of that. Based off of what we saw from the first game, I think Northville has what it takes to put all the pieces in the right place at the right time, and that's the key thing, the timing, once again. Okay, we'll see as we get on to the Rift exactly which of these two teams is able to execute to the best of their potential. The coaches, yet again, who have done so much, surely, coming in through this tournament for both of these teams, have done all that they can. Now it's down to the players on the Rift. Northville, one more victory, one more exploded nexus of East Kentwood, and they have secured themselves their championship with a 2-0 win. East Kentwood on the other side, they are trying to flip the script. They're trying to take us to 1-1 to a deciding series and our own version of Silver Scrapes in the break. Of course, a lot of things that will kind of impact this matchup is also, particularly for me, what itemization we're going to see out of the mages, because we could see 2 Shattered Crowns come out. And if suddenly you're looking at, wow, huge burst damage coming onto a Victor, well, he actually ignores 70% of that, so you're going to have to do like 3 times the amount of damage in that same amount of time. The one-shots are much harder to do, even actually compared to something like a Shield Bow Ash. Like, Shattered Crown does a lot of work. It does a whole lot of work. So what I'll be looking for is seeing random Gen W's tagging, random like swipes of the scythe from Fiddlesticks 2 to try and clear that off of Victor, because that is the item which Victor almost certainly will be going, and I think it is the right choice here. On the other side, maybe Cho'Gath Q can do the same thing, but outside of that, you're looking for like Lucky Death Rays, and if you're walking up into range of that, good chance the counter engage comes through. I suppose the Jarvan flag is a possibility. It's got a relatively decent range. You can drop it in the general vicinity and hope to ping that one. That's a good point, actually. I guess we'll keep our eyes peeled as to whether or not that's available, especially for the Vel'Koz in this scenario. I'm really interested by how the jungle matchup works here, because Jarvan was a champion that we got to see play a little bit at Worlds, got to see what it was doing. It seemed to have a pretty bad win record early on, and then sort of picked up steam a little bit closer towards during the knockout phase. Up against Fiddlesticks, it feels like a bit of an unusual matchup. Again, like last time, where you've got one that wants to make all these early ganks and the other that maybe just wants to farm up a little bit. So there are 2 ways you can view it, because we kind of set up this in the last game in terms of like Viego versus the Zag. Actually, it's okay in some senses, because Viego is going to be better in the skirmishes in a lot of scenarios, but then the team fights, that the Zag kind of comes through into their own ascendancy. This is much more even in the team fights, because both of them have tools to really just mess up the other team. As you were saying, we could have this kind of duality situation where just like both of the junglers are just bombing the backlines and they don't get to pull off their ultimates. And it might be a case of whoever manages to do that first wins. I think in my head, if Jarvan goes first and Fiddlesticks gets to kind of counter that engage, I think that the Fiddlesticks wins. I think if Fiddlesticks goes first and then Jarvan has to go afterwards, it's a little harder to kind of even up the scales. I think that Fiddlesticks has just a lot more of this death zone around him, which makes it harder to kind of play into that. But it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be like well-defined across that kind of spectrum there of results in a team fight.
I hear what you're saying, but also I feel like there's two very different things that we've got to look towards. For Fiddlesticks, Zhonya, yes or no? If no, gets melted pretty damn fast. For Jarvan, which build do we look towards? If it ends up being one of these hyper-aggressive builds, the sort of thing that we'd almost expect coming out the East Kentwood jungler, then that dies pretty fast if it's not got any follow-up. If, on the other hand, you get yourself pretty tanky, actually that J4 can last a significant period of time.
But it's not as tanky as a Taracle, and also you have... I mean, at least the Leona's there for a dive buddy too, right? I mean, you can just throw out the Solar Flare, and if you have Glacial and stuff, remember that also gives that damage reduction. We talked about that in pre-game 1. But, you know, you've got the Taracle, you've got Fiddlesticks, you've got Yone going in as well. There are dive buddies on both sides, and this is much more of an interesting game for me than game 1 in terms of, like, the on-paper results. Because in game 1, I was pretty certain if it came to 5v5s, only one team was going to come out of that alive. And lo and behold, that's eventually what happened. It did get a bit scuffed in some of those situations. Got very, very close. But in this game, this is down to execution. I don't think one team has an easier sense of that than the other. It is about that timing. It's about just hitting your damn buttons at the right time.
If we do get towards that late game, then I guess a lot of people will be turning their eyes towards Mr. Career, who's most likely playing the Yone this time. Last time, it was a game-ending slicing Maelstrom. This time, if they are able to seal the fates of the opposition, that could be the moment that clinches the crown for Northville. We've got to find out as we get ourselves onto the Rift. As soon as we're able to do that, we will bring you all of the action from this second game, of course. And yeah, super excited to see how it pans out, Alex.
So I guess at this point, let's take it away from the drafts and let's talk about the players instead. Because you talked about Mr. Korea and that awesome engage on that cannon to end out the game. They were a pressure valve for most of this game, soaked up a lot of ganks from much bad PvP, who coming into it on paper we thought, okay, this guy's got a really strong champion, has a high rank as well coming into it. We're looking at them to make the big plays and come out ahead, and they did try and make the big plays. They got that first blood on the bot side, which I thought was actually going to turn the game on its head if they ended up in the right kind of aftermath plays from that, potentially a dive under that bot turret. Didn't quite work out, and actually throughout the rest of that game, Viego struggled to get that huge amount of power that we know that champion can do in the right situations with the right leads. I think we need to see, again, that playmaking mentality come through, and at least this time, I think it's going to be a lot easier to actually land those kills on the Jarvan as compared to Viego when it comes to these ganking situations. So if we're going to go put those nameplates back on, once again looking at that jungle. Yeah,
we are. I mean, where is the Jarvan's main focus going to be? It's, of course, there's a decent amount of escapability, let's say that's a word, for the Yone up on top side, and Mr. Career's already shown just what they're able to do in those scenarios. Is it more towards the Vel'Koz, perhaps, that we see this trigger being pulled?
I think you'll find that Jarvan should be going wherever the Fiddlesticks isn't ready to counter gank. That's my feeling, because Fiddlesticks is not going to have the same power to gank, right? You're going to walk in and maybe fear someone at some point before level 6, but the real danger is walking headfirst into a gank and getting countered. That's the one thing you have to avoid. And what we saw last time in the early game was actually that much bad PvP. Had the better read in the early game. Did have the better timing up until, you know, about level 7, 8, when we started seeing Zac finally start landing some kills, forcing the fights a little harder. But if that happens in this game, and you kind of give over those first levels, those first minutes of the game, against a Jarvan who's so much better at ganking than someone like Viego, I think you're in a lot dire straits.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll get to see that in play and see just how on the money you are very soon, Nymera. And we'll get you onto the Rift just as quickly as we can. I'm not sold on this Vel'Koz. I know that you were like, yeah, you know, you got a nice bit of pick on this, but I'm not entirely convinced that that's the pick that's going to do it. But we'll see just how much their laning phase is impacted. To be honest, I didn't think the Veigar would do as well as it did against the Zoe, and in the end, we saw Mr. Brandon's doing absolute work. So here we go. We are back onto the Rift. It is time for game number 2 in our best of 3 series. It could be the final game if a victory is secured by Northville.
be. So, of course, kind of talking about the Vel'Koz. Yeah, I mean, if Vel'Koz ends up inside the Jarvan ult, something horribly wrong has happened, and you're not going to have a good time. So it's going to be about how do you keep that Vel'Koz safe? Because if Vel'Koz just keeps hammering out Qs, you are going to have a higher DPS than likely someone like the Victor is going to have, because you can't walk up into Jin Ws. You can't walk up into that kind of rain of artillery coming in from the Vel'Koz. And once again, we have a 5-man stack coming in from East Kentwood.
Yeah, it's going to be that big invade coming through. Vision being put down by Northville. It will get cleared out. A little bit of extra XP going over to the various members of East Kentwood there. In response, we're going to see Nad able to just step forward. Probably going to be able to pop that clone down, getting the vision of their own.
So another thing I do want to point out, because we talked about the Vel'Koz, let's flip it over to the other side of that matchup with the Victor. Taking first strike. I don't know how effective that's going to be in this game. Yes, you do get to proc it every so often, get a little bit more gold, get that increased damage percent. It will definitely help in teamfights if you hit someone with that first strike active, and of course you get that huge amount of base damage amplified even further. But as we talked about the Vel'Koz in the laning phase being really strong, maybe something like an Aerie would have been more helpful in securing your own presence on the map.
Joe here has almost stepped into danger, but instead is going to be entirely aware of what is going on as Nad goes aggressive, stealing away the blue buff. Will this lead to vertical jungling?
So there are a number of ways you can kind of view this. You think, okay, if you want jungle advantage, you go towards blue to blue, right? You just split the size of the map, make sure that Jarvan can't go from one side to the other, make up that difference in camps. This could be a red buff into bot gank. Level 2, I mean, that's one way to start off the game.
Much bad PvP, definitely thinking about it. Instead, looks like they're going to path their way towards the blue buff. No, coming back around. Much bad PvP will have the EQ combo available. Try and find that knockup. Meanwhile, good damage being put down on top side. We turn our attention back towards the bot side where Joel has to flash away, as does Funny Man. Meanwhile, in top, it is a duel to the death. And it is not quite to death because courtesy of the pots. And Drew is just about going to be able to live.
Oh, flashes out on that last Q from Cho'Gath, but I think the problem here on the bot side, going down towards the other side of it, is a very close. He comes down to towards Kodos Andrew once more, and actually that's one thing to talk about. That's actually that's a name change and that's a player change. Thinking about it, that's the first time we've seen those names in action.
Yeah, I was almost about to call it out. Meanwhile, down on bot side, the Zenith connects. Funny Men taking so much damage. The exhaust was timely, but the stun was even more so. She was not able to get that last hit in with the Ashe. Meanwhile, much bad PvP. Here's got the blue buff secured. Does get caught by a knockup, but finds a knockup of their own onto the Brandon. Damage being put down, forcing the flash out of the Vel'Koz.
That was a sick Vel'Koz. He cancels out the EQ, but not quite before it lands home onto the Vel'Koz. Maybe a step to the left would have saved them a bit of that CC. But okay, right, Vel'Koz, bot lane, both been impacted by the Jarvan's early pressure. I thought maybe we'd see a flash Leona Q to get the person rooted in place, just stun them there so the EQ is guaranteed to hit. Doesn't happen though. So, see much bad PvP, once again trying to impact the early game. It is the calling card of the Jarvan. It is, you are going to be down a little bit of CS down to the Fiddlesticks now, but they're returning to the team. The Cry and Vel'Koz can't catch a break.
Vel'Koz does not have flash available, will have the barrier controlling, meanwhile has the flash available, as does much bad PvP as they look to try and find something, but the Brandon's playing just cautiously enough to keep themselves alive. Fiddlesticks has secured so many more camps than the Jarvan at this point and is about to secure their first scuttle.
So part of that is the Brandons playing very respectfully, playing towards the top side, knowing that their jungle's on the other side, and Jarvan is likely towards the bot side. And also controlling didn't really assist that gank too much. Not that there's much you can do at these early levels, whereas actually in the early levels on top side might have a Q stacked up by Yone if they don't die first.
Mr. Career gets caught out by the Rupture, does find the shielding, goes with the Unbound Soul, will bounce back into play, straight into a Rupture as First Blood is secured by the sub. Codex, Andrew going big here for East Kentwood. Now, will they be able to survive? Getting good damage down, the silence is going to catch on, but not enough healing being done. Nad is able to get that drain, is able to get that kill. It's a 1-for-1, but they lose out on some of their bot lane camps.
It's pretty huge either way though, right? Because it's not going to be the Yone just popping off in that lane phase. It's a solo kill for the Cho'Gath against the Yone. That's going to be early tabbies. That's going to be this matchup, which does spike early for the Yone with that lethal tempo being able to spike up so heavily, getting them into the advantage. So, of course, we did see that it was going to be a wave kind of in an awkward spot for the Cho'Gath. So, Fiddlesticks is in the right place at the right time. It's just that, well, Yone goes down before they can really assist with that gank. And luckily for their team, red buff on the Fiddlesticks adds in enough damage alongside the abilities to make this a very close 1v1 eventually.
Codex actually very nearly turning that round for a 2-for-0. Full Crentum. They come back into lane with the steel toe caps already completed, and that is a huge boon for the Cho'Gath.
I was actually wondering if we'd see, because obviously Cho'Gath, when they kill minions or kill units in general, gets extra HP back. You see, again, so on point with these Qs.
So much aggression from Mr. Career, the same true from Nad as they come down to the bot side trying to find something onto G1. That's going to be the cleanse use, the flash burn from G1. Sleeping going aggressive, try and take as much of the damage as possible to allow Ashe the time to recover, and it works out very nicely for EK. Meanwhile, up on top side, Much Bad PvP has the Predator, goes in, Mr. Career does not have a flash available, taking damage, does dodge away from the potential knockup, steps away from the rupture, more damage coming in, the silence, the flash forward, the aggression, not quite enough to secure a kill, the turret shot doesn't get anything in return. That was a fine margin for both teams.
That could describe most of this game so far. Fine margins, got another gank in mid lane, but Vel'Koz isn't there to assist.
Fear connects, it buys a little bit of time for Vel'Koz to arrive, but doesn't get any damage down, controlling, who's sent back towards their turret with half health, flash still available.
And you can change the matchup, you can change the champions, but both these junglers are both insistent on trying to impact this game. It's only led to the 2 kills either way. It's only led to effectively traded advantages, and actually throughout all of this, still kind of even farm between the junglers too. Checking in on the laning matchups though, leading the top lane after the awkward lane state was probably led to a lot of missed minions to the enemy wave for Codex Andrew, but the rest of those lanes are going in favor of East Kentwood.
It is true, and that is why we've got ourselves just a tiny gold lead going in favour of the team that does trail 1-0 in this series. Meanwhile, down on the bottom half of the map, you see that 400 gold lead for the Ashe over the Jhin. They're going to be able to pick themselves up a decent amount of this wave, maybe shove it in towards the turret, make life even harder for Joel the Mole, who still has his flash down, and it is going to be Funny Men getting theirs back in just a moment as well.
So, as much as Jhin is often very strong in lane, or at least, like, is never bad in lane, Jhin doesn't really get countered by that much unless, I don't know, you've got a very good poke Varus or something like that, but of course that's not really the case with the meta and the balancing being in the way as it is right now. But getting this serious lead for this bot lane of G1 and Sleepybun is very important, because that's kind of a lead out of nothing. That's just a bit of player diff.
Crucially, Codex Andrew's ult has just come back available, caught by the knockup from the Yone. Aggression coming in from Fiddlesticks, who importantly does not have level 6 available. Mr. Career will have the Fate Seal, goes in with it, and is pulled back from the Soul Unbound. Codex Andrew just about surviving, finding the knockup as well onto Nad, keeping themselves alive on this Cho'Gath. Codex Andrew having an absolutely stunning game so far, coming in as sub.
I mean, this Cho'Gath likes to live dangerously, and live they still will. They don't go down. Very close run. That echo damage coming in from the Soul Unbound from Yone, not quite able to take down the kill. It is going to be at the cost of another couple of minions lost to tower, but much like in the last game, actually, top lane has become a bit of a pressure valve.
It has. The first dragon secured there. It goes over to East Kentwood, knowing that so much of the jungler's time have been invested on top side. Oh, a split second later, Mr. Career maybe doesn't find that recall. Meanwhile, controlling gets zapped by the bug.
So about that Vel'Koz lane matchup, this is what can eventually happen. You get outranged, and if you try and close the distance, you get tagged by an E. Things go from bad to much worse. Kill in the just in a straight 1v1, goes over to the Brandons, and suddenly, look at these solo lanes. As much as the Cho'Gath has been outplaying a lot of these ganks, had also got that solo kill earlier, it's not a done deal just yet in the mid lane. Yeah,
this is what happened on that top side play that led to the narrow surviving coming down to Codex Andrew.
So, I mean, when you've got the Yone with the E up, it's just so easy to just chain all of your abilities into each other, double knockups, and it's just single digits away from a kill. Fiddlesticks goes for the flash into the ult, gets it cancelled by the Q. Codex Andrew just very on point, very quick reactions, and gets out with summoners and ults burned.
Credit where it's due. Codex Andrew coming into this game and already putting their mark on it. However, over on the other side, Northville doing a great job just CSing up, giving themselves this slender lead. Now that kill on the Vel'Koz as well, it's probably in a slightly better place than the Victor despite the 10 CS discrepancy.
So it will depend on really what platform these backline mages have got in the actual team fights, right? Because if you stood there with no vision and you can't actually stand anywhere safely to start firing out Vel'Koz Qs or to put down the gravity field to control the terrain, yeah, it's actually going to be very difficult for you. Often with control mages, that is often the case, where you have to kind of like rely on your team to give you the right platform. Maybe there's a platform in bot lane for Jarvan to do something dangerous.
That's going to be the Cosmic Radiance, used a little bit of invulnerability for both the bot lane of NV, but with the nice use of the Cataclysm, Funny Men was completely trapped with not not a single friend to be able to run to. Jin just had to stand and watch, but now throws out the critical 1, 2, 3 shots connecting onto Much Bad. The 4th shot going narrowly wide of Sleepy, and that is why Jin is not able to return with the kill. Meanwhile, on the top side of the map, we do see Herald being secured by Fiddlesticks.
But the thing about this bot lane is that, okay, you do have Solar Flare. Potentially you can force the Jhin away from turret, but I don't think you're going to be able to unroot that ADC from that farm. So it is going to be a kill for a Herald. So that's, 300 gold for potentially 320 coming in from the play from the place. And then also the ability to force someone off of waves. Really interested in seeing what the maximum value North will get out of this Herald, because it could actually end up being a one trade from this cross-map play.
Let's call it a show of respect coming here from Nad. Camping Codex. Andrew, of course, has the Herald to put down should they be able to make the play onto the Cho'Gath. Codex does not have a flash available this time. Nad is going to go forward, deciding not to ult over the wall, instead just buying time, finding a knockup onto Codex. The ultimate use, but the rupture beautifully played. Mr. Career finds the silence. Gets silenced by Codex. Andrew, as Mr. Career is able to get back. Much Bad PvP comes to the top side, saving the day. But again, Codex Andrew just playing this absolutely beautifully on top side.
And Much Bad PvP turns up in time to stop any kind of follow-up play. The Herald's not going to be dropped in this top lane. And with the Cho'Gath ultimate under that tower, I was wondering if that was going to be a kill trade at that point. Still, lots to play for on this top side. Not a done deal just yet. There is a Fiddlesticks ult. If you overstay, well, you might be doing that into a Crowstorm.
That is entirely possible, especially with the Vel'Koz coming topside now. Much Bad is left in a really awkward position, able to flag and drag over the wall, leading Codex potentially for dead, though, as the Crowstorm comes in. We see the Asher arrow going considerably wide of its potential target, leading to Codex Andrew finally giving up their second death of the game.
Finally goes down. It takes a lot to get that Cho'Gath into the death chamber, but that time seems like a bit of a miscommunication. Maybe it's like, okay, we can play around the Jarvan. Of course, Jarvan sees the Vel'Koz walking up, sees that the Fiddlesticks is in that brush, and Codex Andrew kind of misses out on the memo and doesn't get out in time.
Oh, controlling also might not be able to get out in time. Nad still doing work, managing to find consistent fear after fear. Damage coming through. Lifeform Disintegration Ray find its mark for the second time. The Brandons finds a kill with it.
Controlling just too close to the fire, gets burned, and the Brandons comes out with another crucial kill participation. And now suddenly, if you have mid lane turret focus down and you have an artillery mage who's adding things into the equation, you're feeling pretty good about things, but Jarvan is trying to change that.
Goes aggressive, uses that Parental Burst, finds the Cataclysm, forces the flash out in that, but the volley comes in from J1 just too late. Solar Flare does catch on to Nad, who doesn't have a flash available. Much Bad secures this one, but leaves Sleepy in a really awkward place. Much Bad and Sleepy both flashing over the wall to avoid the damage coming out of the Brandons, who's still chasing this one down. It's going to be the Raptors who eat the Q, though.
The flash from Cho'Gath is not over yet.
That's going to be a rupture connection. That's going to be a feast and nom stack for Codex Andrew.
Okay, so what turns into a strong mid lane power play. Victor goes down, potential turret going down afterwards. Actually flips on its head. It's going to be the wave shoved into Northville's turret. It's going to be the Vel'Koz going down for the first time. And what could have been mid lane turret going down, which of course is so important with these artillery mages and these control mages alike, is going to turn into a dragon and a stabilization play coming out of East Kentwood.
Joel Mold and Funny Men do complete that recall, leaving Contron to be able to shove the wave in before join their team for this Infernal Dragon. Let's see what rift we are dealing with. Are we going to get, in my own words, one of the fun ones? No, Mountain Soul this time round.
Not this time. This is still quite relevant, though, particularly because when you've got champions that want to play in choke points, much like this Vel'Koz, you can see, yeah, if you just stuck there and you have to tank up all of their damage, you're not in a particularly happy place. Well, maybe a Mountain Rift can help towards that, as we see controlling. Well, I mean, not really much you can do there once you're within the active range of the squid.
They're well and truly out of control, but the turnaround was good from Much Bad.
It was, and again, we kind of talked about why that's important. It means that the outer turret doesn't go down, blah, 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 all this geographical advantage. And then CC from Leona and Jarvan comes out tops here.
Just about getting away with Much Bad and Sleepy's lives intact, and thanks to a little help from the friendly neighborhood Raptors. Meanwhile, on bot side, Nad looking for potential ult. We are going to see the Enchanted Crystal Arrow connecting. It is going to be Victor running, and that's going to be Jarvan running straight down. Cosmic Radiance, use teleport channeling as well. 4v4 brewing in the bot lane. Yoni going super aggressive. Sleepy not able to avoid the curtain call. Strike to silence, connects, and it's a 1-for-1. Cataclysm now connects onto Funny Men, who's trapped. Volley finds the slow onto Mr. Career, who flashes away from the rupture.
And of course, there is one mid laner in this game with a teleport, and it's not the Vel'Koz. They stay in mid lane, they do get themselves some plays, probably going to get themselves a turret actually because plays are already down. That's kind of an important side win for the side of Northville, but it's at the cost of 2 kills in the bot lane. It's the cost of some hefty cooldowns of their ultimates too, and they lose a tower there as well. East Kentwood come out swinging, and I think actually if they lose the Vel'Koz too, this is horrible for them.
I don't think they're going to. Chaos Storm not chasing fast enough. That is going to be the flash forward. Brandon's will die to controlling Mr. Career, trying to find the return kill, already using that Soul Unbound, will be bouncing back. They might need to. They find the last hit onto the Victor, making it a 1-for-1 there in mid.
So both the mages hit the ground at this point, and we are in, once again, for a very even early into mid-game. We can see that both of these junglers end up in the right place at the right time. I know one thing, as I said earlier, is like, okay, actually, these matchups and these junglers are going to be about actually who counter-gangs them. This is kind of both countering each other at the same time, but where it really comes into play is what's happening with these solo laners, what's happening with the teleports. Yes, you do get that Jin ult finishing off 1 kill, but engage range comes out very importantly from Jarvan out to that point, and the ability to continually engage through these fights, get a second EQ, whereas Fiddlesticks can only go forward the once.
Game 2 of this series feels a little bit like it's been the Codex Andrew show, and again we turn our attention towards them up in top lane. The knock-up already connecting the fear will slow Codex Andrew down. They do find the 2-man rupture, but surely not enough to survive. Last time in bot lane, it was Veni, Vidi, Nom, I came, I saw, I feasted. This time up in top line, it was I came, I saw, I overstayed.
And maybe not Codex Andrew, maybe closer to the Codex Astartes, because in the grim darkness of the top lane, there is only fighting. You don't really get a break from all of this warfare, and it is going to be a lot of kill participation and death participation for both solo laners from East Kentwood.
They are both rocking that 2-3-1 scoreline, but crucially they are both starting to come online. Will both have a significant amount of damage coming towards the later part of this game, which will be so crucial, especially on that Victor. Second Herald of the game does go over to Northville, and they do continue to expound that gold lead they've built. It's only at the 200 mark though, and this game is certainly much tighter than game 1.
For sure. So, of course, gold lead, I talk about it quite a lot. It can be quite misleading, but of course it is a good indicator of how far out of whack things are. Looking at the item completions, you do have the Cho'Gath with a lot of armor. You're going to have to dive them, at least with that Fiddlesticks, but actually Fiddlesticks doesn't have safety here.
Has put the Herald down, but now finds himself surrounded by 4 opposition forces. Goes over the wall, gets caught by the Enchanted Crystal Arrow. Is there any follow-up? No Zenith Blade, but a volley does catch one more shot from the Ashe, and that should be enough with the Ranger's focus. A turret will drop through the Herald, but the Fiddlesticks will drop to the Ashe.
Can't exactly call these fights clean, but they are definitely being approached with quite a lot of ferocity by both of these teams. It looks like Fiddlesticks was trying to find an opening to get a clean play up on that top side, but doesn't quite respect the movement of enemy members. They didn't have them. Well, I mean, one of the problems actually of taking mid lane out of turret is that getting priority and pushing into turret and understanding where the players are there actually takes a bit more effort, because you've got to push into the inner turret if they don't care to pick up that wave, and this time they didn't. They chose to fight. Now actually on the other side, it looks like East Kentwood choosing to take a mid push of their own.
Both teams seem to have come into game 2 with renewed vigor, and right now it's East Kentwood just about coming up on the better side of things. 20 seconds until a third dragon of the game spawns. That would be a third dragon for East Kentwood if they get it, and with this catch going straight down onto Joel the Mole, it looks like they're going to be in the advantageous position. Sleepy Bin flashing away, managing to survive. Cataclysm put down aggressively. Much bad PvP says, you lot are stuck in here with me, but with the Lifeform Disintegration Ray raining down, it is Vel'Koz able to take down Leona. Firing back, Victor secures the kill on to the Fiddlesticks, which all but surely means that the Dragon should go over to East Kentwood. Juwon very nearly taken out by these stray rays from the Brandons, but not quite enough to secure a kill this time onto the Ashe.
I think what East Kentwood are doing, which is working to their credit right now, is using the ability to show that they're less ultimate reliant to fight here, but there are ultimates coming from the other side.
Mr. Grid doesn't want to go quietly into the night, but that's what Ashe will do. Damage being put down by the Death Ray from controlling, but it is going to be more damage put down by the opposition mid laner. Codex Andrew eventually nomming the Vel'Koz, but not before they secure 2 kills, not before they take control of the Dragon Pit. Joel the Mole, who's now
not sure you want to be there,
finds the Gale Force, finds the Deadly Flourish, and Yone finds the kill.
Oh, so from what seemed like the jaws of a very difficult situation, Northville pull out a fairly important passage of play. They deny the Mountain Dragon, rather, that's the one, away from the tankier team of East Kentwood, and they pick up a lot of gold, which they'd kind of given up in the previous set of plays themselves. as I was kind of talking about, a lot of this was kind of about, okay, well, you've got basic cooldowns being used on one side, you know, you've got Jarvan combo, Leona going and all this other stuff, and then you have ultimates being used on the other, you know, Taric ult's being down, and yes, you do have Jarvan ultimate coming through here, but they're just using the fact that they're less ultimate reliant to try and win these fights. On the other side, I was thinking, actually, how much gas they got left in the tank here to try and fight things through, and it gets scrappy as hell.
I mean, it's a frantic set of plays. Even that replay, even in like 2x speed, everything looks even in normal speed, things look mad. But then Mr. Career rejoins the fight,
Great sidestep.
Come over and boy, death is all that Yone found.
Yes, I mean, I could probably just rip the quote straight out of Return of the King, where Theoden just goes, death, 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 and didn't just kind of like meet the battle lines and see what the hell happens. This time it does end up being actually in the. I was about to say, wow, it's a one play for Northville. Actually, not sure it is in the grand scheme of things. This is a bit of a loss for Fiddlekind across the world, though.
Yeah, the Enchanted Crystal Arrow means this one's pretty donezo. There's still a turret to secure up on top side, and there's now a Baron available as well as we're past the 20-minute mark.
And particularly with this kind of competition as well, as we see a death on the other side of the map.
Yone just absolutely one-shots the victor, but that leads to much bad PvP. Going aggressive onto everybody who remained up on top side. Yone will have the opportunity to teleport in with much bad PvP so low. Mr. Korea has set their eyes on this target. Curtain Call reigns in, as does the Life Form Disintegration, raised so much damage. Codex Andrew just about able to survive. The kill is turned around as Ashe finds one, tries to dodge around, finds a nice volley, finds damage after damage after damage, gets a good bit of shielding, dodges away from the Velcon, and finds a triple kill. Oh baby, G1 absolutely went enormous. The perfectly timed flash, the perfectly timed cleanse, and that is the play they needed to make.
Oh, the world on one arrow. Well, this time you have dozens of them flying into the backs of Northville, and just when we thought, actually, this fight's getting scrappy, actually, this game could go any direction, Ashe comes up tops. See the slows on those autos coming up so importantly, particularly on Ashe. You get that approach velocity to get yourself that extra movement speed towards enemy champions once you have it down. Gets the lethal tempo stacked up, and then at that point, the DPS just reigns true.
I was just watching on the bot side, just the instant evisceration coming in from the Yone, but not there in time to save their team on this fight.
No, and again, much like we saw in that last game at the very end with that Jinx, getting enough autos to get that lethal tempo stacked up, being able to keep it up throughout it. You see, again, the auto attack uptime from G1 is really impressive in this fight. See the flash forward and the potential ability to lifesteal through things coming out very importantly, but the flashes, even though they're away, you can see the extra movement speed advantages with the slows coming through. That's some really classy kiting from the Ashe.
It was really classy indeed. So much shutdown gold secured there for G1 as well. 1,000 gold just coming in for killing Mr. Career alone. And now that Ashe, if they weren't online before, they certainly are now.
They are, but they also don't have a flash. They don't have a Gale Force. It's going to be the Shield Bow build, as maybe the Phil 6 wishes they could have something like a Shield Bow. They lose most of the HP.
Now it's been having a rough game here in game 2, zoned away completely from this fight. But meanwhile, Yone takes down the hero from the last fight, turned to the 0 this time around. G1 is dead, and now it's for Envy to try and chase him down. Mr. Career perhaps caught out, controlling, manages to find the kill. The damage coming back out of Brandsby is not enough to rip through a mighty tanky Cho'Gath. The Cosmic Radiance buys enough time for Nad to throw down the Crow Storm. Much bad PvP is going to be able to jump over the wall, but will get caught by a deadly flourish. The Life Form Disintegration Ray rips through the remaining health of Codex, and another set of kills comes in for Northville, who yet again, coming into this mid-game, have really dominated.
Oh, consider that Cho'Gath well and truly researched, gets the full passive from that ultimate, and if you're not going to stop that Vel'Koz's ultimate, well, you best make sure you're out of range. They can do neither, and they fall. Again, Shield Bow is down from that last play for Ashe, so they just get instantly one-shot. You're not in position to have the Leota do any stunts for you. It's a good flank coming out of Mr. Career, gets right onto the back line exactly where they need to be, and Yone takes away the biggest threat away from that team.
They do, but then they themselves get shut down.
Yeah. That needs to, because as much as you got on this extended flank, you do need to make sure that you have some kind of backup going towards you, and it's just not quite well timed enough. They end up dying in their own right, and Vel'Koz comes out with the bigger DPS towards the end of that fight. So we're back into the middle of things. We got an action.
From replay to replay to fight to replay to fight, on to infinity and beyond. 2 kills come in for controlling. They take down the Taric. The Cosmic Radiance unavailable this time round. A turret secured by East Kentwood. It feels like every time one team gets an advantage, the other team takes it straight back. And this is an advantage which should lead to East Kentwood securing their first Baron of the series.
Yeah, I want to get off Mr. Bones' palt, right? I say plaintively in the background as I wonder if I'll get one damn minute to try and talk about this game, but Vel'Koz isn't done!
Live form disintegration ray rips through another soul. The Baron looks like it will be secured courtesy of a feast. Another stack coming in for Cho'Gath. Much bad PvP. Goes aggressive but has to flash out. Jhin not so lucky. Ash finding themselves yet another kill as the Brandons escapes into the night. Another dragon now on the table as East Kentwood can turn their attention towards that, having secured purple buffs.
Just after they lost the fight a couple before, you know, you think, wow, Yone's starting to really get off to the races. Then Yone gets shut down. You get the Ash ult onto them. Suddenly chain that into a Baron. And as much as the game isn't over, this feels like one of the biggest momentum shifts we've had, at least in this game too.
Like last time, Northville don't want to give over a third drag to East Kentwood, so they'll start this one up. They will get spotted out by the far side token, but it looks like this dragon could already be gone before much can do anything about it. They don't want to give it over, but they might just give over their life and their Baron buff and not even secure a dragon for it. Bunny is caught out, does have the Chaos Storm on top of him. It looks like it's going to be a 1-for-1 with the Tarot being traded for the Jarvan. The Enchanted Crystal Arrow doesn't connect, and Mr. Career goes in with the Soul and Bound, bounces straight back to their Bound Soul and escapes with their life.
Okay, you know the MVP of that fight? Absolutely the Leona ult. It's a well-pinpointed ult from the Yone straight into the CC. No follow-up autos, no follow-up Qs. That would have been probably 2 dead carries at that point. Clutch ultimate from Leona to save the backline.
And it's bought loads of time for East Kentwood to just march down mid lane, take themselves an inhibitor turret, maybe even take the inhibitor down as well. Mr. Career doesn't want to give this one up for free, but might not have much of a say in the matter.
Well, the say right now is whether you can get this reset off, start returning onto the map, get some extra ill-gotten gains for yourselves. Of course, the top lane out of turret still up for Northville throughout the entirety of this game.
Love
we
that.
saw the amount of jungle pressure that was put up there, but with this wave coming in, I think it's finally going to meet its demise.
Oh, Mr. Career, you might have stepped into enemy territory here trying to walk through your own jungle, losing half of your health just to what controlling can do before having to flash over the wall. Sleepy will still connect with the stun. That turret you were just talking about will fall as we see the Yone die as well. Now the opportunity for East Kentwood to continue pushing with this Baron buff. They've taken an inhibitor in mid. What more will be their reward?
Okay, well, if you don't have the Yone, so you start off proceedings with his ultimate, it does get quite difficult because you're looking for something to set up for the Fiddlesticks, pin people in place, get the huge base damage from Crowstorm coming through. What might help, though, is trying to get yourself an easy pick, but this might just be stop backs from the Jarvan. I think, actually, that Jarvan's has bought an inhibitor for them.
A much bad PvP will die, but by so much time while doing so. Enchanted Crystal Arrow, crucially, does not connect on to Jolimol. Didn't even have the Gale Force to escape from that one. The second inhibitor dies, and this is all because of the time bought by the Jarvan. Well played, much bad.
Okay, and actually with the Fiddlesticks ult down, potentially that saves them from the engage. The Vel'Koz Q barely missing.
Curtain Call looking for some slows, looking for some damage. J1 will eat one up. Cosmic Radiance will stop the health bars falling on the side of Northville. They take down Codex Andrew, and now they look to charge down onto the less tanky members of East Kentwood. It's still Northville trying to push forward, trying to rip more Baron buffs away. Mr. Career doesn't know when to quit.
Okay, so there are minions on the Nexus. There's potential here. We see East Kentwood trying to split the enemy team once more, trying to guess when they're going to recall, get themselves some minions away from those Nexus towers and look for an engage. They choose not to. Maybe that's a bridge too far for them. We're going right the way back. This is right the way back before the Baron even came in. And again, superb kite coming from Ash. This is the kind of playstyle which we saw coming out of like Prey in Season 5 and Season 6. Just one of the gods of the AD carry role, especially on that Ashe too. And just the AD carry auto-attack uptime has been really impressive from this Ashe.
It led to the Baron. We talked about ease of execution in game number 1. We've got to talk about it now as well. Not many more easy to execute tools
everyone's
than
just
that,
being executed at this point. That's the way I'd say it. Not necessarily ease. It's more like a revolution of sorts. One of the famous European ones. You know, the ones with the guillotines. But no Darius involved in this one. Just lots of fire coming in from both sides.
So what has that left us with at the 28-minute mark?
A very confused Colocaster.
23 kills to 22. Oh, it's a 4,000 gold lead for East Kentwood, the team who have pushed down 2 inhibitors. It's 2 dragons apiece with 2 mountains, both secured by Northville, definitely helping the stat stick. But the Enchanted Crystal Arrow connects onto Vel'Koz. The follow-up is good, but the follow-up is actually better from Mr. Career, who goes so aggressive. Crowstorm comes over the wall, and Ashe is dead. Now it's a 5 versus 4. We'll see what Codex can do on the rear side of this fight. Victor does manage to take down a kill, but not before Jarvan dies. Yone will be the next to go down as well. And just like that, controlling is wiped from map. Only Codex Andrus remains. Fortunately for East Kentwood, they have got minions on the Nexus turrets right now, and this means that the push from Northville is somewhat subdued.
And the other thing is that, well, there's no Baron. Dragon is up in like a minute, but that's when respawn's coming through. as much as, you know, we've praised both these teams for their timing and their wombo combos in the game before this, look what happens here. Ashe arrow lands, but the Leona ultimate is just not quite on time. Maybe actually Leona's trying to hold on to trying to cancel the Fiddlesticks, trying to get the Yone locked down in the middle of the team again. But if you don't get that Vel'Koz also pinned down, if that's your primary target, well, it put out that kind of damage.
The team that were down 4,000 gold secure themselves 4 kills, secure themselves shutdowns, and put paid to the push that had really got them very much so under pressure. Now they have to decide what they can do around this dragon that's spawning any second now.
So coming back into live, have to see what's happening with the vision, what's happening with the respawns. Turns out actually a lot of this is going to be wave clear duty. As much as it's kind of sad to give over a dragon, particularly if it goes over to another Cho'Gath stack too. It just makes killing that tank even harder. You don't really have much of a choice when it's that or your Nexus.
That is pretty much the decision that they've been left with, and with no Jinx on the map this time round, we won't look for any fancy steal. Instead, it's just going to be Northfield going, we're pleased we took those last 2 dragons away from you. That means this one's not giving any kind of soul. It'll be soul point, but at the 30-minute mark is that super important. Oh my word, Mr. Korea. That was an Enchanted Crystal Arrow that went just north of them. They looked for the teleport. They tried to escape, knowing that the EQ has already been used. They get themselves out to safety. Mr. Korea with the great escape, but it leaves the Baron open to East Kentwood.
But if you drop the Victor ult, that actually is the channel cancel too. Potentially could have done that with the Victor. It would have been too long for that for the gravity field to do it. So damn close. It's gonna be almost uncontested, but Fiddle's going in. Fiddle goes in. Fiddle dies. Baron secured by much bad PvP, who even flashes as well. That is going to be another Baron buff going over to East Kentwood. They are now 4,000 gold in the lead. They've got a 5 versus 4 power play for 30 seconds. And as much as Yone, again, kind of has another, like, hero play, another great individual play to make sure that they're still alive, still on the table, still available to fight the next fight, it does lead to the Baron going down. It does mean that your jungler has died to try and steal it as well. And this might lead to the end of the game. This is going to be a big play, forcing the flash out of Mr. Korea, who's done so well to survive for so long. Fiddlestick still not alive for another 10 seconds. Pressure coming down onto a Nexus turret that's already been ripped of most of its health. Thunderman trying to step forward, does have the Cosmic Radiance available. Of course, that doesn't affect your structures. And right now, East Kentwood are just focusing them down, taking structure after structure. Fiddle is back alive, does not have the ultimate available, but Mr. Korea going aggressive, trying to bounce back, taking so much damage straight to the face. Much bad PvP, eating up a lot of the damage, and Funny Men being eaten up by Codex. Andrew, the Cosmic Radiance comes in, but it's too late. The Guardian's Angel will be used, but it's not there for Joel Mole, who gets eviscerated by an Ashe, who finds a double, almost finds a triple kill, but Nad flashing away to prevent that one, will not be able to prevent the end of the game, will not be able to prevent the equalizer in this series, and it will now be sudden death as we go to game 3 between East Kentwood and Northville. Oh, bring on the decider. Slick plays out of the AD carry from East Kentwood. Seriously, my MVP for that second game. Makes it look really stylish in the way that they pull out those team fights. And, well, if game 1 was a bit more of a clean affair in terms of those wombo combo sealing things out, that one took a bit of work. Yeah, that one, if the first game was Ronaldo, that one was messy. And that was just quite a game to watch, enjoying every single second of that. East Kentwood putting up the fight that we so hoped they would, taking us to a deciding game. And I think that's that one is one. If you've been watching so far, you would be a fool to leave now, because game 3 promises to deliver in an absolutely massive way. Such a massive way that even Thor's coming along for the ride. They're here, they're happy to go for it, and they're going to be seeing this game along with you. Isn't that right, Thor? No, he's gone. Doesn't care. Nymera, what was your highlight of that phenomenal game 2? Oh, gosh. I mean, I don't even know if I can pick out a single replay. There were so many very close team fights. There was a lot of big individual plays. You could take any pick of like a good half dozen fights in there, and you'd probably say, oh yeah, that was probably where the game turned. It just kept going and going. I don't know. I mean, that one was just such a wild ride, and I had so little time to actually process all of it. I'm genuinely struggling to think of the turning point in that game. Entirely reasonable. For me, one of the biggest things, I won't call it a turning point, but it was a deciding factor in the early stage, was Codex Andrews' seeming invincibility and the way they were playing that top lane. Coming in as the sub and having such an impact, really helping their team. We'll see whether they stick with that player coming into game number 3. That game 3, we, of course, will be bringing you in its entirety, but right now, we're going to take ourselves a quick break, refresh, and come back charged up, ready for the final game in this terrific series. Stick around.
This grand final has already given us 2 terrific games, and we've got one more to bring you. Who will be standing tall at the end of it? Will it be East Kentwood or will it be Northville? I'm Stanley Greyheart-Mark, and I have been enjoying this action all the way through alongside Alex Nightmare Hapgood.
And I, for one, can't wait for our next Sova and Jet picks to really round out the agent select in this particular series. Gonna get ourselves into picks and bans really, really quickly after this. And
we are going to, yeah. Speaking of people who like using guns, can we just take a moment to have a shout out to some of the players? Because I've had the opportunity to look at the damage graph from the last couple of games. ADC-wise, there is absolutely no doubt about who is the big damage dealer when we look over to the side of I'm actually checking the right champ. Yes, I am. That's always a plus for East Kentwood. Right now, these ADCs, whether it be Jinx, whether it be Ashe, they're just outpouring all of this damage. They got a little bit of help from their friends, of course. Victor was putting good damage down as well. But so far, even though we hyped up things coming out of the jungle so much for East Kentwood, it's very much so been ADC dominant. I'm looking forward to seeing what they're able to pick up as we get towards this third and final pick and ban.
And I do think that a lot of the playmaking has come from the jungle. We've seen, okay, to what success, that's changed a bit. It's been very mutable, that one. But we have seen a lot of attempts from both junglers trying to get involved with the lanes, trying to get involved into the team fights as well. And that leaves me quite interested in seeing what are the big backline diving junglers we're going to see in this game, because we see the Zac banned away, we had the Jarvan already, Hecarim's already banned, or we can see Fiddlesticks again. Is there something else there? Maybe something like a Nocturne, shooting again, ratchet things back up to that really high backline access game.
So slightly surprised that we don't see the Misfortune banned away again here from East Kentwood. They decided to take it away after they got ripped through by those bullet times in game number 1, but they leave it open yet again. It's first pick for the second time tonight by Northville, who are back on the blue side of the map. They, however, have been respectful towards the opposition ADC, have banned away that Ashe. Last time we saw the Misfortune, it was the Jinx played into it. See if East Kentwood have something different in mind for their main damage dealer.
Yes, the idea this time is, well, if we're not going to stand at range and sit in the bullet time, we will close the distance very rapidly. You've got Solar Flare, which is going to unlock the Kai'Sa getting into the fray. And that means that Misfortune is going to be quite... It's going to be quite risky for Misfortune to go for a lethality build. Yeah, I mean, with Rel and Cannon, that certainly helps actually bolster that again. But if you ever get caught out, your turnaround damage is not massive as lethality Misfortune. You would need to be crit to really start turning things around, hopefully take down the other AD carry with you. Let's see how bold Northville are feeling about their Misfortune builds.
I've given a call out to the main damage dealer coming from East Kentwood over on Northville. Biggest damage dealer in game number 1, Mr. Korea playing the cannon. Second biggest damage dealer for their team in game number 2, again, Mr. Korea playing the Yone this time round. They get themselves their hands back on the cannon before it can get banned away in the second phase, and I think that is an interesting pick. It's going to be up against the Shen this time round. Remains to be seen whether it will be Codex Andrew playing it again or not, but I like what we're seeing coming through from this draft already from Northville.
And there is the outside chance of a Shen jungle. We've seen that a bit over the last couple of seasons, but it's not standard. What we might see, though, is the Kai'Sa bomb, where you fly into the backline after the Soul Flare connects to someone, and then a Shen just comes flying out of the ether from the Spirit Realm, drags a sword with him, and gets right into the thick of things. If you do that into a Cannonal, again, we kind of talked about, oh, Viego's going to really suck trying to play into a Cannonal. Well, I mean, try doing that as these low-range champions do. It's not going to get any meta for you.
Okay, second phase of bans all completed. Vel'Koz and Veigar, the 2 picks of choice that have come out of our mid laner over on
Someone's V key has been stuck down.
Yeah, that's it. Maybe they'll have to play Viego mid now, because that is both of the champions played
that's been banned
from
too.
the mid lane from Northville.
It's just
Vex is banned as well. It's going to have to be Vin Zhao.
Vin Zhao, yes. Good goods.
Yeah. Well, it can't be Victor because that's been picked against them.
Lord, forget about Vladimir. I don't need any more of that in my games.
Oh my gosh.
Going to go towards a different cut of cloth, though. Potentially going to be another AP carry. It's going to be the Gwen. Does that mean we're going to have Gwen top, Cannon mid into the Victor?
I mean, I was feeling like we could be seeing Gwen jungle, Kennen top, and then we maybe get a mid AD champion. But let's see what gets Gwen locked jungle in for this fight. I know it's actually been nerfed to the ground, hasn't it? Let's see what gets picked up in this last one. It's going to be the Seraphine. So
it's going to be Gwen jungle.
I think that, well, you're right. I'm also right too, because the Galio is the final lock-in, and that feels very much like a mid lane champion, even though it doesn't start with V.
Yes. Cool. They must have like gotten to the end of like their possible champions. Maybe it's just they don't own the champions. Although that just completely doesn't make sense because it's on Pro Draft. But you know what I mean. Anyway, so we're gonna have big old wombo combo again. You're looking for anyone to ignore into the back line, and you're gonna have Gwen kind of like holding like this no man's land up between her and Misfortune, and say like, you got to get through me to get to the Misfortune, while Kennen has the Galio on top of them to kind of like secure the backline access on the other side. That gets quite difficult with a Trundle involved as the last pick though, because it's not just getting towards the backline, it's like trying to run towards them and then getting pillared out of the fight. That's actually quite dangerous now.
There is, of course, the potential for flex here for the Trundle and the Shen, but I expect to see the Trundle in the jungle and the Shen heading up topside, as we talked about earlier on. With these drafts now completed, I'm fascinated to hear your thoughts on this one. You've backed Northville in both our games today, and you've been right exactly 50% of the time. So which way is that coin flip landing this time?
Does not compute, trying to figure out what these comps even do at this point. I think I'm going to give it to Northville. I like the idea in isolation of Kai'Sa just diving onto the backline of the Kai'Sa with the Leona involved. That really sucks when you've got a Gwen just hammering on you, very good against low-range compositions. When you've got the Galio ult, the Cannon ult, really making it hard to do that as well. I think that you try and go towards the backline, you're just going to get slapped by ultimates, and it's going to be a really horrid situation. The saving grace to them, though, is the fact that Trundle is also pretty good in those low-range conversations, too.
And for me, this is very much heart against head, and I feel like just over the course of this fight...
That's not good medically, Stan. You should really see someone about that.
Depends whose heart it is. So... we're coming into a game here where, across the course of this series, it feels like these two teams have really grown on me. I've backed East Kentwood all the way through in the same way that you've backed Northville. I feel like I have to stick with that at this point, and also very much so have to stay, contrary to whatever you say. It's just our bit. And I very much love that we're seeing it's my favourite champion in the game. Shen's being played here. Entirely possible it's going to be on Codex Andrew. Love seeing the Leona. I like what it does. I'm not a massive fan of Trundle Jungle right now. If I could pick, and you hadn't selected Northville, I probably would be going with what I see this competition do, especially having seen how 3 of these champions were played, and then stacking a Galio on top of it as well. I just think it makes sense for Northville, but I'm sticking to my guns, and for the 3rd game in a row, I'm going East Kentwood.
I mean, the other thing is that I just kind of remembered once again that they have a Gwen jungle. I'm like, it's not my favorite thing in the world. Since the E got nerfed so heavily from Gwen, you don't have the biggest attack speed steroid with on-hit damage in the game at level 1. That's not going to be the kind of thing which... You could beat Tryndamere at level 1 with Gwen. Like, you just walk up to and you just auto-attack. You beat Darius at level 1 back in the day. You don't really get to do that now, so I'm really worried about how much of a presence Gwen's going to have in terms of clear speed. You're not going to have this overwhelming presence in terms of your skirmishes too, particularly against the Trundle, because Trundle walks up to you, hits you with a Q, and like Trundle beats everyone in early levels, like pretty much everyone. You chomp on them, and then you steal so much stats. You don't really get to stand and fight. So I think that the jungle matchup is going to be quite hard to play around, and it's not really going to aid much towards a Galio either, which means that Victor's going to have a free time to scale. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, maybe I should flip my prediction, but no, Stan. My 2 once again shall be the nemesis. I'm going to go back with Northville.
Okay, well, we'll find out as we get onto the riff for the 3rd and final time today. And I have to say, it's been really terrific. One of the things I loved about the last game, as chaotic as it was the chaos, because it was like the teams just went full-on chaos mode. They took themselves a big old gangplank doubloon, flipped it up in the air, and then it just landed flat on everybody's head and killed everybody on the rift all the time. And in the end, it just about came up in favour of East Kentwood, but I can't profess that to have been through phenomenal macro. It was more just everybody embraced the chaos.
The play-by-play is dream, yes.
And this time the chaos smiled on East Kent. We'll see if that happens again coming into game number 3.
You've mentioned chaos. I already mentioned the Codex Astartes in a reference earlier. We are heading towards like 40,000 levels of gameplay here, and the grim darkness of whatever the heck this is. There is only constant skirmishing. And I, for one, don't see that stopping with these compositions here.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of headbutting. Like a whole lot of headbutting this game. I don't even know who wants to be engaging first. Like, this is one of those rare situations, and I'm sat there like, well, you got the Leona Kai'Sa on one side, but they kind of want to play around the Victor, so they don't really want to hard engage all the time. But then you're doing that into a Galio that just ults the person you engage onto, and you feel really sad. So it's one of these weird situations where neither team really wants to be the team to engage first, but they kind of have to at some point.
I think Northville probably are slightly more going to be the ones pulling the trigger. It feels
slightly.
Like
it's a slim margin.
It really is, but it feels like because they've got the Rel Ultimate that can then be followed up, as we saw in game number 1 with the bullet time and the slicing maelstrom, that they can pick off a couple of the key targets by being over aggressive. That maybe there's not enough time. You can't save everybody with a Shen Ultimate.
So what we're hoping for at this point is that, you know how like the V key was just like completely stocked down in this champion slate, like we banned all V champions, cool, they're gone. What happens if the R key is just like stuck down in game? That's the one way I can see this game being really fun, because every time ults are off like cooldown, I expect them to be used not exactly sparingly. They're going to be quite frugal with them. Is that the word?
I think frugal means that it would be sparing. I think frugal's like just sipping away at it, whereas
it's been a long
an overabundance is probably what we're looking at. It's going to be like Earth mode out there.
It's the word. Okay, it's going to be the word which isn't frugal with the ultimates.
Unfrugal.
It's going to be such an unfrugal game, and for those of you that don't know what that is, it's a neologism. That's a word I do know, because neologism is making up a word which didn't exist. So now it's a word. Congrats, you've learned something today. Today I learned.
Oh my word. No, Mary,
yeah, pick that up, Stan. Where are you going now?
I'd love to say it's always a pleasure to cast with you. Really, I would. But anyway, moving back into the game, one thing that is for sure is that we're not going to be seeing any Ari this time. We get my favourite champion on the Rift, but we don't get yours. Alex, as we have this small break now, tell us about the Ari Shrine. Why do you have an Ari Shrine?
Well, it started back in 1996 in Nottingham City Hospital, and there was a person called Alex Hapgood born, and then, you know, you head forward like 25 years or so. How old am I? I'm like 25. And then we get to this point. Yeah, I'm an age, and I feel the need to become unhealthily attached to a character in a video game, and that kind of leads to this eventuality where I'm trying to be good at a video game where the champion's not actually very good. And yet it just has to keep happening. It's this endless cycle of like trying to play it and still kind of sucking.
I love that we've got to a phase where if Ari gets locked in any competitive game, you're instantly getting tweeted about it. Hey, why not tweet about this final? Because it's going to be a good one. We could definitely do a few more fantastic kills like we had in that second game. Let's see if that's what happens. We're going to get into the action just as quickly as we can, just waiting for things to be all sorted on the Rift, and then we bring you this final game. It is here in the MASSP finals for League of Legends. For those of you who are wondering, that is the Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals. They've put on this League of Legends tournament. 8 teams entered, only 2 remain. Our top 2 seeds, number 1 being Northville, number 2 being East Kentwood. They're duking things out, and they are dead level coming into our deciding game. So far, every team on blue side has won. Will that trend continue?
I have to see it, because I mean, like, as much as I'd like to say it's the side choice which matters, and of course, like, the misfortune first pick really does matter. We saw what happened with that in game 1. Northville were very confident about kind of setting up the Womba combo and making sure it landed on the right targets. I don't necessarily think the drafts with all of these picks really matters on side choice. This isn't like the big brain, ooh, we have completely countered your composition with a misfortune support. It's not that. It is adaptation on the fly. It's still, again, trying to figure out some kind of kinks from the last game. Again, like last game, it was, okay, well, we've still tried to go towards backline access. And again, this is a backline access draft once again from East Kentwood. It's just not from the jungle, which we've been seeing from the first 2 games. So I like that adaptation, but I don't think that would have mattered on red or blue sides with that draft.
You're probably right there, but maybe just maybe it will be game deciding with the order things have gone in. A big shout out to the coaches for these 2 teams. It's always nice when you get the opportunity to see that those coaches have had that impact, not only bringing the players forward, getting them to gel together, but also probably impacting the pick and ban phases as well. They've assumingly done all that they can to this point to get the teams to this stage, and now it's essentially sort of like to bring it into soccer terms, it is almost a penalty shootout at this point. It's sudden death, winner takes all, and all the other cliches you can manage coming into this final game.
I know you have to placate our friends across the Atlantic, but do you really just stoop low enough to start calling it soccer, dude?
Dude, football died here in England with the Euros, so it did not come home. And as a result, I'll say what I want. You know what?
Also, the public transport system did as well, because big stadiums are not suitable for TFL.
I'm a big fan of what over here we call American football, and over stateside they just call football. So I'm perfectly fine with them having that one if they want to, as long as I can, give a subtle
What you mean
Go
not
Pats
quite?
shout out.
You mean like not as good rugby? Am I allowed to say that?
Ooh, let's put it this way. I think chat is now officially on my side, especially because chat seems to be heavily favouring EK, and so have I been across this series. So
Your
me and
boos
Twitch
mean
chat,
nothing. I've
we
seen
like
what makes
this.
you cheer.
Yeah, it's me. Hello.
Okay, looks like we are pretty close to getting into game. We have had the word, the grow ahead. Like, I know that you've asked us to start the game in chat, and, you know, I've just got this button right here. I could press it at any time, but I just wanted to milk the audience a little bit more. You know, just gonna make sure we get our proper, like, run into the game. Okay, I've
Go on, do it.
button's been
3,
pressed now.
2, 1. Oh.
There you go.
Oh,
Held you
it's
hostage that
worked!
long.
2 games running we have seen. Every time I see EK, it makes me think of Evil Knievel. But no, each time we've seen East Kentwood going for the 5-man stack. This time they do not. But on the other side of the rift, it looks like Envy might be copying something out of their page.
Do you see the 5-man stack once again, actually? Although this time it's coming in from Northville, not from East Kentwood. This could be a Kaiser served up on a platter. Does have cleanse, no heal though, so you might be able to get out of the CC. Won't exactly heal that damage though.
Let's see if we see any kind of aggression coming out of Northville. We could almost have a game-deciding moment here in these opening spells, but it looks like Juwan is going to be safe enough. That key damage dealer does not get found out in the bush.
Okay, so this is a really interesting thing. You see that pink ward down there? Good job, Reserves, catching that one. Trundle doesn't care about damage he takes in the jungle because he has so much regen and so much ability to just, like, have single target damage. You don't actually need to take pots. You're one of the few champions which do that. Warwick is another one. But in this case, that's actually really unfortunate. Cannon does their homework, and Trundle denies them the gold because they picked up a second one and put it on their own buff.
It's absolutely wonderful.
That's
yeah,
so
no
pity. You
no
just
extra
used
gold,
like
no
half
extra-
of your starting gold for that.
You know what? Worth is what we're going to see Matchbad PvP saying in chat on that one. Small leash there from the Kennen for Nad. I'd say Gwen Jungle hits something of a nerf, going to smite away that blue buff as we see red secured by the Trundle over on the on top side of the rift. Let's see where these original ganking paths come, because neither of these junglers are really ones that we look at the level of impact of, say, the Zac or the Jarvan, which was so prevalent in the first 2 games.
Yeah, well, what Trundle does is just, like, walk at you menacingly. You just can't fight him because, you know, you get into an extended trade and he just kills you, right? Doesn't have phase rush like we saw earlier in the season, which made him so insufferable to play against as most level 1 junglers. Does have the Predator, though, so again, much like we saw in the last game, we had 2 Predator junglers on the field. You see the ability to turn up to the play even earlier. What is interesting is that Trundle didn't go Red Raptor's Gromp. They're choosing to go to level 2 into mid.
Straight wrap around, going to look for the chomp, takes a little chomp and a chicken wing, but it's not going to be much more than that, and can't even turn it straight into a scuttle. Instead, might go aggressive onto the opposition Raptors. Not going to spot Gwen out just yet.
Yeah, but now again, the problem with this now is that you have given up your level advantage, and yes, Trundle can trade very well, even from, like, a level down, but you're not really looking to outtrade at this point, just as they kind of very much going to outtrade the Shen before you have that dodge field. Those autos really hurt in top lane.
Yeah, that's done, just leading to more and more damage being put down by Mr. Career. Their damage charts have been absolutely through the roof in the last 2 games. We'll see if they can look for that sort of performance again. Codex Andrew coming in for the 2nd game in a row. So far, they have only tasted victory against Mr. Career. We'll see if they're able to replicate their performance last time. So much to look out for in top lane.
What does victory taste like? Could you describe it in any other terms?
In the words of Ralph Wiggum, it tastes like burning. Taunt connects onto the cannon, but the turnaround of damage is good. Both those top laners still have their flash available. A little bit of vision being spotted out, but Nad is going to have to dash away from the Trundle. The 3v3 is one that has been quickly escaped from by the Northville team.
There is a chance we see an E-Flash from Cannon here. E-Flash into W might be enough for the Mark of the Storm, but the level up is hit by Shen, eating so many autos down the top lane.
Opting into the Aftershock in this matchup, as well as pointed out by Twitch chat, is potentially going to mean that they lose out a little bit on some of those base stats later on. Meanwhile, the shove into the turret does mean Northville are missing out on a little bit of SCS. That's why we do see the Misfortune falling behind the Kaiser.
Yeah, I mean, talking about that Aftershock, obviously it's quite difficult into range matchups to consistently proc that because you're not like trading autos with them a huge amount. You're only trying to hit like these quite difficult E's to hit. Maybe something like the Spellbook would have been higher value. That's what we tend to see in losing melee versus ranged matchups from tankier champions or Newsted all the time. Of course, Grasp is a little harder to get as well. That's out of mana on Kai'Sa, and that's a very quick punish.
Yeah, the crash down, forcing the flash from G1. That could come back to haunt them later on. Northville having a little bit of the early tempo advantage, it feels.
So minor victories there in the bot lane. It is Flash away from who was really the star last game on the Ashe, but seeing them on another high-value champion in the Kai'Sa, it's going to be quite important to track. Of course, they have the lethal tempo, not the Hail of Blades, and we see one of those E's catch onto the cannon.
Taunt, Aftershock, all the damage coming through, flash forced onto Mr. Career, who escapes just before the Trundle can come and wreak havoc.
Okay, so this is something that's been done really well, actually, by both solo laners from East Kentwood. They've kept the waves exactly where they want them to be in the lane. You have the Shen and the Victor having their waves outside their turret against champions, which can be punished if you go for the harder trades. And again, Galio has to sit here, farming with the Q, inadvertently pushing the wave, and
oh, the
punished.
pillar beautifully blocking the Justice Punch, and with the stun connecting, first blood is secured by much bad PvP on the Trundle.
Okay, so a lot of people ask questions about how the heck does Chovy get CS advantages on Galio versus other matchups? Well, it's because he's so insanely good at wave management, knowing where to keep how to keep the wave in the right place. And you see what the Brandon's does here is sadly he starts inadvertently pushing the wave with the passive with the Q, and he's going to die.
Teleport burn, flash already used, stun connects, and just like that, the Galio jumps out of the fire and into the frying pan. Kentucky Fried Chicken on the menu.
I'm not sure either one. It's a particularly good option. I think he's been put in both at this point. It's like slow cooked, just finished off with like that fry at the end. And again, just kind of going back to what happened with the solo laners, holding the waves in the right place. It can be quite a simple way to get quite a good lead, particularly in competitive settings where you don't have as many like explosive leads as solo queue sometimes. In this case, of course, it is just caught out just a little too far. Support roams at the right time because Kai'Sa's actually got the wave frozen under the tower and isn't at risk of being shut down in that bot lane. It's a very time-efficient maneuver from East Kentwood, and they get such high value out of that kill on after the teleport too.
Looks like the Dragon is going to be another reward on the back of that one as well. Really fascinating there to see what we did with the Justice Bug being used, as we do see some aggression coming in, potential for a smite still. It's not going to happen. Nad now trying to get out to safety, taking so much damage from again. It's going to be Sleepy Bun who is going to be securing the kill, but now the flash away from much bad, and Brandon's gets caught by a Zenith Blade, another chomp, another bit of damage coming in from Yuan. It is going to be a little bit of support coming out of Northville bot lane, trying to get the Galio out to safety, but at what cost? Much bad still just about able to survive despite the winds of war. A kill does come in off the Galio, another will follow as Joel the Mole bites the dust, and it is going to be Codex Andrew who joined with the ultimate that is trying to chase down yet more onto the realm, but it looks like EK will be pretty happy with those 3 kills in quick succession.
Oh, what a capitulation. This was set up to be, again, somewhat of an even contest, heading towards team fights, blah, blah, blah. Much like we've seen for the other 2 games, but it's just the floodgates opening at this point. It's micro mistakes and potentially a little bit of tilt coming from the Brandons. Galio can be a hard champion to play into your mages. You need to understand where to have the wave, and they're just punished on cooldown. Credit to East Kentwood for being in the right place, making sure they are lurking in every damn shadow the Galio is trying to avoid. And you can see what's happening with the Gwen here, because use the blast plant to get everything. Maybe you can use the E to get out of the wall, but he uses it to just buy a little space from the melee champions. The Galio's there, not there in time. And then Galio, of course, gets flashed away from in his kill combo, potentially could have taunted into a smash. Maybe would have lived at that point, get away with the kill. Just goes bad to worse.
Going back to the aggression there from the Gwen and trying to steal that Dragon away. This is a Gwen that does not have flash even. They've opted for the Ghost in this mashup, so they're just really never going to be able to get out of dodge. And down on the bot side, it is going to be the bot lane duo from Northville who do get out of dodge despite the attempts coming in from the pillar.
So, Trundle with the drive-by smite. Sure, get another cooldown off of your smite item, but much like we've kind of seen in the 2 solo lanes at this point, talked about them, I mean, we did see Kai'Sa holding the wave by tower. That has led them to get to a point where Misfortune hasn't felt safe enough to go up and collect the wave. CS advantage now achieved for the Kai'Sa. on the Brandons is continually getting punished to the point where actually Gwen has to pick up this wave. Galio's not in a position to farm it.
Galio having a super rough time. We'll probably throw out the Winds of War to try and maybe secure this siege minion, but they'll have to do much more than that. Having to share the XP with the Gwen as well. Controlling, well and truly controlling this lane now. Throws down damage with the Death Ray. Already looking towards those upgrades, courtesy of the kills, the assists.
Danger.
Now Much Bad has found the Gwen, finds the Chomp, finds the Pillar, finds the damage. Not quite find the kill. The taunt is going to connect. The knockup comes in from the Justice Punch. But the Brandons is dead again.
This is what happens when you start trying to bail out a lane which just cannot help itself at this point. And again, like, you know that Galio is a cost-efficient champion. You know you're going to be economic. You don't necessarily need items to work through yourself into the team fights, but Gwen is not the champion that can help you in the early game. Yes, there is a bit of farm on them, but you can't exactly be the person making the plays in the early game to turn things around. It was one of my concerns with that draft, and it does seem sadly like that's coming to the fore a little bit for Northville. At least in this bot lane, you still have some point of pressure.
Crush down yet again, forcing the flash out of G1, but they go aggressive straight away with the killer instinct, and they kill off Joel the Mole, looking for a second as well. The plasma rains down, the procs are good, the double kill comes in. Leona takes them both, but that's still advantage EK.
It's advantage, and they are on track for a perfect game. Normally you don't say that 10 minutes in, but given how this is going, well, yeah, you have to point it out. This has been absolute domination from East Kentwood in the first phase of this game. You now have Trundle on the top side, matching that Gwen who's heading up there too. Potentially has an ability to turn this around. Let's see if they can pull something out of a hat.
Look for a moment like that. The pass light ships in the night instead. Much Bad PvP realizes they're in a really awkward place. They get the stand united. They get out to safety. They get to keep their 0 deaths scoreline intact.
And as much as you think, wow, that's a good play. You can get something out of the Trundle, maybe get a kill there. Well, you don't. You get the Shen ultimate, sure, but that's at the cost of the Cannon ult. It's the cost of the Cannon Flash. Gonna go back down towards that bot lane CV2. You can see there's potential open. Leona, pulling their way, and this fight goes completely differently if you have the Misfortune level 6. You don't necessarily need to walk up into melee range, you have that combo ready, but somehow, some way, the Misfortune is the one that's missed out on more XP than the Rel. It's the ultimate difference, and leads to ultimately a double kill going up to Leona.
Much Bad trying to taste down Mr. Career, gets the pillar, but it is going to be a cannon escaping up on the top side of the map. I just want to say how disappointed I am, because if on the top side you told me we'd be seeing one of the Doctor skins, I'd be like, yes, it's Surgeon Shen, it's me, it's my favourite skin. Instead, it's like, nah, it's going to be Kennen MD, which I love, it's a great skin. But it fills me with sadness, much as sadness surely will be foiling Northville, realising they're probably losing out on yet more neutral objectives. This is going to be a second neutral objective going the way of EK, and of course it's far too early to talk about perfect games or anything like that, but at the 11th minute mark...
I just talked about it.
Yeah, I know, that's why I'm telling you it's too early to talk about it, but but the 12-minute mark, things certainly looking great for EK.
There they are. And, of course, you can always wombo your way out of the ditch, right? You just say, right, okay, let's get everyone into our AoE. Hopefully we can turn something around with that. It's not like you've got huge Seraphine shields, huge Karma shields, making these Trumpet dancers on the turret. What do you do? What do you do? You just watch the plates go down.
That's what you call so troll. And it will be a second charge, almost certainly, for Shelly, as we do see Death Ray just cleaning out these minions so incredibly quickly. Gravity Field put down just to buy a bit of extra time for the Herald, who gets the charge.
25
just
HP.
It took down to like 1 HP. And yeah, things aren't looking good. You're talking there about all this damage reduction coming out of EK. I'm looking at the sort of the damage that's going to be output. You've got AP jungle, AP top, AP mid tank for Envy, but even despite this, Codex Andrew opting into the steel-plated toe caps.
You know, tabbies are OP, something like that. At least it's an auto attacker in Gwen. I mean, I know that Merc Treads are not the most valuable item in terms of like all situations, but yeah, when you've got like even if you factor in Ral's damage, right, that's all magic damage. You are looking at that thinking, okay, yeah, maybe Merc Treads is slightly more useful there, particularly because there's a lot of CC involved too. But yeah, I mean, for the early parts of the game, when Cannon is at laning stay, it's mainly about auto-attacking you and just chunking through those W procs. You can kind of see minute value in it.
Potential dive being set up on bot side. Much bad. Just going to pop the pillar down. Just buy J1 time to yet again make it rain plasma, which has been doing a little bit more than making it rain bullets from the Misfortunes so far. Has opted into that early serrated dirt. Will have decent damage if the bullet time option comes in, but right now it does feel like Envy just don't have a foothold in this game.
And as much as you can wait for that Misfortune Rel combo, like, you mess that up and you kind of like get the cleanse into the Kaiser roll on top of you, that turnaround is going to be very unforgiving. So as much as that's kind of what you're waiting for, I don't see it happening in a straight 2v2 situation. You can see that reflected in the CS advantage again. Trundle does the thing which he does so often, takes away a camp, runs out, continues trolling.
Oh, so frustrating for Gwen. Nan, who's had a really excellent game, especially going back to that Zach game in game 1, has had a good series, but in this one, just unable to really match the pressure being put down by the Trundle. Down on the bot side as well, I do want to give a shout out to Sleepy Bun, who I had in the first game or two miscorrectly called Sleepy Bin because I'd seen the umlaut on the U and, you know, Old Man Grey Heart, I'd made it an I in my head, and they are definitely not in the bin on this one. Sleepy Bun making absolutely delightful plays.
I think that they've had themselves a strong showing in this series, and hopefully we have that continued in this game. It's not completely done yet, but when you have this level of lead, this point in the game, you definitely start questioning, you know, what your celebration dance is going to be. But the difficulty is, as much as, like I say, oh, it's not done, blah, 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 I mean, where's the actual big fight coming in? Because there's actually... I don't see there's a way you can safely start committing to a 5v5. We haven't seen a single Galley ult this game. We might see something here, but it's going to have to be against a Flash from the Victor. Doesn't do it in time.
The taunt is good. Everfrost connects with the slicing Maelstrom damage. We do see a first kill secured by Northville. No perfect game here. Potentially a perfect start to a comeback, but meanwhile on the bot side, so much pressure being put down. No turret plating to be secured, but still more gold to be found for EK.
Just check it. That pink ward was definitely there at the start of the play, right? That was on vision. That's a big old combo.
That is a big old combo. The cleanse does very little. G1 does manage to escape to the backline, but not before seeing their support die. They follow them to the death realm as Codex Andrew comes in to try and buy time for much bad PvP. That is going to be the Trundle and the Shen escaping into the night, but not before saying bye-bye to a couple of their friends.
And suddenly, out of nowhere, given to Northville is this opportunity they're looking for, a chance to get multiple people. Oh, it's on the tower. That's a lot of tower
Just
shots.
on the taunt, Joel the Mole forced to flash away, but now Codex and much bad may have bitten off a little bit more than they can chew. The owner not going to be making their way back to this fight in time. Gwen trying to put the damage down, but it's not enough to secure a kill onto the Shen.
So, Wombo number 1 completed. Let's see where number 2 lands in. Ultimate's down for now, and it was all 5 used in that, whereas on the other side, of course, Victor wasn't present at that fight because they died in that mid lane, chose not to teleport down to things. Yeah, Trundle just making sure that the resets can't come in cleanly, and that's actually quite important because if you don't get these good resets, you're probably going to lose this bot lane turret. Shen choosing to recall, but as much as Shen is going back to base, his presence isn't needed to secure that structure.
Yeah, much bad. Just going to march down, take the turret, and that is going to be a third turret secured. Sorry, a second turret secured relatively easily for EK, but this was a big potential turnaround.
It was. See, actually, backline access achieved. Gwen does get onto the AD carry with that Ghost, and they don't have themselves the upgrade yet. They don't have themselves invisibility to try and dodge out on some of those auto attacks, nor do you have something like a Lulu or any of these enchanters to buy a little bit more safety. Actually, the safety which was bought for that Kai'Sa was by Leona cancelling out that Misfortune, going back onto them, and Trundle Pillar also helping out in that regard. But it does mean that if, you know, you still manage to close that distance, there's nothing left to save the Kai'Sa besides their own fingers.
Sleepy Bun was killed off there by Joel the Mole. That led to a 600 gold bounty.
Yeah.
That eclipse now completed for the Misfortune. We'll be able to continue to stack that tier up, get closer and closer to the Mana Moon. Also, potentially, it opens up the opportunity for Envy to start thinking about contesting around this third dragon. But they're going to have to do it right now as the Slicing Maelstrom finds all 5 opposition members. The bullet time rips through EK and Envy go Mahusiv, finding a triple for Misfortune, an 8 in total. A dragon will be secured and a herald to boot.
Where the heck does that come from? You have the Trundle Pillar in there. You understand you've cut off the cannon, but you still have to keep your safe distance. Doesn't matter if your Victor has Death Rays from half a screen away. If he's stuck in the Slicing Maelstrom, things go from bad to worse. And for the second time in the row, we have the Rel getting onto the backline to follow up. It's one absolute pinpoint, perfect ultimate into another to set up the misfortune yet again. Northville, how the hell did you just do that?
180 seconds ago, it was 8 kills to 0.
Oh,
it was a
that is
6,000 gold
just
lead.
beautiful.
Those 4 ultimates stacked onto each other perfectly there, Nightmare.
That is 3 ults hitting 5 people. That is a tale of a wombo combo and a half. We said, okay, cool, wombo combo 1 achieved. Where's the second one come in? Comes in right bloody there. That's absurd. That is so well played. Take a bow. That is absurdly well done.
That was absolutely out of this world. I am forced to retract my statement about Envy being able to pick up a Herald on the back of the dragon they secured, but that will go over to EK, who do still retain the gold lead they have, but it has been just well, not so much decimated as halved at this point.
Yeah.
I suppose that is a decimal. 0.5,
Well,
right?
I mean, Zizo, what decimated?
I'm good at
what,
maths.
you know what decimated means? It was actually an old Roman legionary punishment where they ran away from battle and they'd kill every 10th man. So it's taking away a 10th is decimating. A bit of a brutal punishment, but this is more than decimated. It's doing it several times over.
Yep.
Let's see if we can have ourselves Wombo number 3. No flashes this time, but ultimate's available again.
Galio teleports in. He's looking for a potential play. Controlling, forced to flash away. In goes Gwen. Taunt will connects on to Controlling. And Joel the Mole finds yet another kill. Sleepbun trying to do what they can to disrupt on the backside to buy time for G1 to try and find the damage that they provided so well in previous fights. They've just about... They don't kill the Brandon who goes golden, but does eventually die. The owner will give up their life now to Misfortune, but the damage is still there. This time, G1 survives, and this time, Envy don't.
And you can see again kind of like the hesitation. It's not the perfect ult this time. It's not 5 people piling onto each other. And Northville commit a little too much, looking for a bit too much of a perfect situation. Because the Misfortune ult's down and they're only left there with the Rel. There is no contest available. Teleports back onto the map from East Kentwood, and it seems like actually as much as Northville have done so much work getting themselves out of this early deficit, getting themselves back into relevancy, back into a real point of power, it slips away from them as easily as it can.
180 seconds ago, we saw the fight that turned the game. Moments later, this fight turned beautifully by protection onto G1.
So, Controlling does step up a little too far. But you look at this, that's the gravity field, buys a bit more space. Kai'Sa still free hits, and Kai'Sa not caught by the Rel. It's so close, and as much as the Misfortune again is holding on to the ult, much like we saw into that bot lane turret where kind of like the first of the play started coming through with that 3-kill turnaround. Leona gets onto the Misfortune, means that you can't actually sit there and ult. This is one of the big problems with Leona into Misfortune, with Jarvan into Misfortune, these big backline divers, is that you want to sit there and get an ult, but what happens if there's too many cancels? You have to sit there and the whole part of your kit you've built towards your build just isn't that impactful.
I said it coming into pick and ban game number 3 that G1 has consistently been the damage source for EK.
Yes.
It's not a shocker as they're the ADC, but with so many other strong players on the team, it's amazing the level that they've been able to achieve this. Game 3 is just proving this in leaps and bounds yet again, as the now Baron empowered team start to crush down towards these inner structures.
So now we're looking once again for the angle into the backline, the angle for that CC. Let's see if we can have another huge funny man engage on the Rel, get that crash down into multiple people. It needs to happen pretty soon though, I think, because if you start giving up too much of this map, it's going to be quite hard to achieve vision to find that perfect stack again.
This could be a good moment for Envy to go aggressive. In goes Funny Man, starts the fight up, but the taunt is going to connect onto Cannon before they can use the slicing maelstrom.
Not bad.
That will be a bullet time ripping through the health bars! And Joel the Mole yet again pops off, but Koenig
Kai'Sa!
finds the damage, finds the taunt. Kai'Sa's still alive, and now Misfortune is not a quadra kill. The penta denied at the last moment by Codex Andrew, but I don't think G1 will care one iota, because it's going to lead to the Baron empowered team finding at the very least an inhibitor.
Oh, you can catch the Kai'Sa a couple of times in the Wombo, but the few times they go free, well, it goes so poorly for Northville, and of course it's G1 that really comes away with the lion's share of the damage. Of course it's them cleaning up the rest of the fight. The Gale Force back into the fray. Got to get that back onto the replay. And again, you can see the angle coming through. You can see what they're trying to achieve. But as soon as the Rel goes in, it's either the Leona, it's either that or the Shen going right towards the backline and stopping something from following up. This time it was stopping, looks like the Cannon from going forward. And then G1's free to keep going as well. The Cannon ult, the Rel ult, the Misfortune ult. They missed the Kai'Sa. Kai'Sa gets to turn around as soon as the danger's passed. I
think it was on that big fight that we saw around towards the top, towards mid-round dragon, I guess it was, where you said that is 3 parts of that wombo combo, 3 ultimates, hitting 5 people. Crucially here, even though we see bullet time, we see slicing maelstrom, we see all sorts of damage coming in and getting knockups, getting damage onto 3-4 members, the 1 member who survives that onslaught is Ju-On. And there's enough tankiness coming out of Trundle, coming out of Shen to buy the time for the Kai'Sa to just absolutely rinse the opposition. It's only a 5-2-7 Kai'Sa. It feels like it should be so many kills more.
There is that, but
make no secret of the fact that that damage chart is once again being dominated by Ju-On.
Yes, and another part of this is, okay, sweet, not the highest KDA, still the highest kill participation out of their team, not as high as the Misfortune on the other side, but who's the person with the next highest CS? 211 is obviously the score which Ju-On's got. Next one is his own mid laner in the Victor at 156. That's a huge amount of gold just through CSing better, getting access to the waves, getting that extra resources. It's led to 3 items, it's almost a full item up over their opposing number, and Ju-On is running away with the monetary value of this game.
Undeniably, and now it is down to Northville to try and find a way back into this game again. They dropped to 6,000 gold before slashing that gold deficit. Now that gold lead for EK is back above 9,000, and that is so very, very hard to deal with. The redeeming fact, if it can be called that, for Envy in the last fight was the fact that because it's only 23 minutes into the game, the death timers were low, and so all that could be secured was an inhibitor turret or 2, but now EK, they just look like they've got their pedal down on the floor, and it's very much so the accelerator, not the brake, that's being pushed.
So if we're going to talk about CS leads as well, talk about in the AD carry role, but CS leads are not created equal because, you know, we do have a 50 lead for the cannon, right? We got that gold in there, but actually it's not a gold lead because the amount of gold from kills has come through to the side of East Campwood. And you're looking at the ability to impact these fights. I'd say Shen, actually, in the last couple, has had a bigger impact than the Cannon. If Cannon hasn't landed the huge combo, then actually they've been shut out fairly effectively by his Campwood. Same can be said, of course, in this mid lane as well. You know, there's this lead not really bringing much to the side of Northville in that top lane. In the mid lane, actually, Victor's got a huge amount of gold, and Victor's actually had some very good Chaos Storms and Gravity Fields. Yes, they have died a couple of times too, not the most spotless record in terms of that those deaths has gone down those 3 times, but that's a CS lead which has meant a little more. Just seems like all of the micro advantages and the situation which they find themselves are going the way of EK.
Use the term shut out there, and right now it is Envy who are shut out from all the resources in their jungle as well. You see Gwen just about being able to steal a red buff away, and I say steal very deliberately because it feels like even going into their own jungle, that's something they've been able to steal rather than just safely getting. Meanwhile, over on the other side, the Troll has had their number all game long, and it looks like yet again they're going to be able to find the engage coming in. Funny man, buying a little bit of time. The bullet time will rip through, will get some low health bars, but not low enough. Forward flash to Sleepy Bun, managing to connect, and it is a double kill that comes in, a triple secured yet again for the Kai'Sa. Ju-On in the last 2 fights has gone quadra kill, triple kill, does get caught by the Everfrost, but cleanses away immediately, potentially looking for more, maybe another quadra to be found with Codex Andrew going aggressive, buying a bit of time for Sleepy Bun and the rest of the team to join the fight. Gwen throwing out ultimate damage, but it is not stopping EK. They are absolutely en route to victory here. They take down an inhibitor and now turn their attention either towards the mid lane or the Baron.
Okay, so the death timer is still a little low for the side of EK, and once again, serious congrats to Sleepy Bun for getting right on top of the Misfortune. Seeing the potential danger, seeing the, wait, we're all stacked up, we're on a corridor, there's people in front of the Misfortune, there is a chance that the Wombo comes through again, get right on top of them, stop them from getting themselves the ideal picture-perfect Wombo. And actually, after that, Joel the Mole stays a little too long, rather, and gets shut down after that point. Tries to look for something, doesn't quite find it, and then gets punished accordingly.
27 minutes in, and with the Baron having not been started up by UK, instead opting to spend all that gold they've just accrued, it's just going to be a quick journey from Envy to check that one out, not trying to start anything up themselves, quite wisely so. Let's see if we're just going to see a Baron being picked up and maybe a quick force from EK to try and end this one while they still have this huge advantage.
So it looks like it was a reset for gold to spend it to make sure that all of that weight in their pockets is actually weight in items instead. The Baron is being shredded. It's already gone. Gwen's here.
Nad tries to find the steal instead, finds Death. Bullet time does rip through Mortal Members, but then Steng connects onto Joel, the Mole. They flash themselves away, but not away from the damage coming out of the Kaiser. Double kill comes in. Victor takes the third of the fight before Shen secures kill onto Galio. Only Mr. Career stands, one of the top damage dealers for Envy, running from the scene of the crime. Codex Andrews able to come in with the teleport, connecting with the taunt. Codex Andrew coming in as a sub, continues their top lane dominance. It is going to be EK who will push this wave of minions on top side, through to the Nexus turret, through to the inevitability of their victory. They have bounced back from being 1-0 down in this series, from not looking good in game 1 where Northville were dominant, to finding 2 destructions of a Nexus in a row. And just like that, it will be East Kentwood High School who are the champions.
Game 3, hard fought. A couple of the games ended up having that tag attached to them, but that one really did get scary. It seemed like a done deal only 10 minutes in, and then 2 incredible wombos came in back to back. And actually, the replays of this game are probably going to be for the losing team because of that. But the fact that those came in and actually EK managed to rally, managed to come back into it and say, actually, let's just make sure the Kaiser's safe. Kaiser can start carrying this. That's fine. Just don't worry about everything else. Make sure that we get on top of the Misfortune. The Leona, the Shen did that perfectly after the first 2 fumbles. It really tells towards the mindset and the mental fortitude of this team to make sure they can stick it out in the long run.
Absolutely incredible. In this series, this best of 3 that we've had, have you got an MVP?
Oh, it has to be G1. Like, there's no way it can't be the Kaiser extraordinaire, the Ashe coming into it as well. And this is actually going to be one of the game-ending fights. This was the one where, again, you can just see how Sleepy gets right on top of Misfortune. And yes, they do get an ult off eventually, but it's after the person's already down. The first kill's already gone. John keeps flying forward, and the damage is just irresistible at this point.
Yeah, the K3 Rain is more damaging than Make It Rain in the end, and it is G1 and the rest of the team who take the victory. G1 who takes the MVP of the series, given to them by the fantastic Nymera. What a tremendous series we have had. It has sort of gone one way and then the other. Game number 1, dominant victory for Northville, who looked terrific, coming in as the number 1 seeds. They're on blue side. That early Misfortune pick paying off in a big way. The Kennen ultimate at the end of the game was a real standout of the series for me. Game 2 was just full of chaos. If you're going to go back and you come into this and you haven't maybe seen the whole broadcast, just go back and watch Game 2 for the fun of it. If you want to hear a play-by-play talking endlessly like this and never letting a color caster talk, that's the game to watch, because it's just kill after kill after kill. And Game 3, East Kentwood took that win that they picked up in Game 2 and they just drove that dominance all the way to the finish line, taking an absolutely stellar victory.
It did. So that will end us out for today. And as much as we said at the start of the broadcast, actually not as familiar with some of these teams as we could be and these players. I mean, there are a couple of names here which I'm going to very much remember. Thank you, Twitch chat, for putting all those copy pastes in chat. I think it's caught up here somewhere now. And it's been really enjoyable to, of course, cover it with you, Stan.
It has been a lot of fun working with you. As always, Naira, thank you for joining me on this one. A huge thank you to our production team putting this one together. It's been a real pleasure working with every single one of you. Thank you to the teams competing for putting on such a great show. And thanks to all of you out there in Twitch chat. Hope you've had a good time. We sure have. We'll be back soon here on PlayVS. See you soon.